tonight's meeting of the Beloit City Council to order. Mandy, would you take the roll call, please?
Tony Beloit.
Yes.
Todd Nato.
Here.
Andrew Grapon.
Present.
Matt Hyde.
Here.
Lee McMillan. Jamie Meyer.
Here. Thank you. You'd stand with me for the invocation of the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, be with us tonight with the wisdom that guide us for the decisions we need to make that's best for our community. And please hold our community up and keep us safe with what's all going on. And thank you for our law enforcement for the wonderful job that they're doing patrolling our city. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have anything?
No, sir.
Thanks. Matt?
I was just gonna say, I think we should look into remodeling this room. Like we talked before the cameras went on.
Thank you. Jamie?
Nothing.
Tony?
How are we doing on the truck route closure on Elm Street?
We've kind of put that on hold a little bit with what's
Right.
been going on with the crew's been working on some curb and guttering, and then they've working on the 8th Street. And we need to, I don't know if they quite had the time yet to get with Mr. Har and kind of come up with a solution and stuff. So I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I don't know if I reported last time about it, but when we went to look at that, he's got a driveway that really only swings
Really kind of
north.
shoots him off to the
Yeah,
north
that's
there.
the
Yes.
only way. So we're gonna have to rebuild or do something to get it to turn south. And
Okay,
so yeah, so it's on the agenda to do it.
It is up to help.
We just gotta
fix
talk
the
to him,
driveway.
finish that, and do the drive. Yeah, I think we can do it. So
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know what was
No.
giving him a get out of jail free card and let him go north and
Well,
arrest
we would
everybody
like
else.
to, but then the one time we don't, we forget. You know, the wrong guy pulls him over, and then
okay.
you know what's gonna happen. So.
Tony, he's been calling me about it. I told him,
Yeah.
we've had a conversation. We're not going to do anything until they come up with a solution, and then we will get with him to be part of that, and then we'll work our way through it.
Yeah, we just haven't asked that one truck driver that lives on that route
That you can only get into his
Yeah.
place from the north.
yeah.
Yes. And
And if you're curious, yeah, just drive by. You'll see. It's not like, oh, you can turn south. You can.
You can't. So his trailer would drop off their back.
So we'll get it figured out. But yeah, we'll.
No,
once 8th
no,
Street
that's
gets
fine.
done,
This is-
yeah,
people have approached me, they're in favor
for
of it.
sure. Yes.
So,
Yeah, we just have a few things we got to cross off before we do it. So yeah, we'll get it.
all right, very good, thank you.
Yes.
Katie, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that, I did some checking, and our truck route ordinance specifically only addressed tractor trailers of certain weights. So what I've done with that one is I've actually amended that to include farm equipment, spray rigs, basically your ag equipment could only be on truck routes in town. Makes sense. I think most people probably follow that anyway, but we didn't actually have that codified anywhere. So when we do that ordinance, that'll be part of it as well. So not only will trucks not be able to go north, but really any ag equipment.
So like pickups pulling liquid trailers and hydrogen ammonia trailers would be.
Those are okay, yeah. It is a pickup, yes. And I don't have it with me, but there's some specific language in there about with regard to that. The only other thing I have, we did do court last Monday. It went fine. We did it downstairs. We'll probably, for those of you, we usually do court in here, for those of you who don't know, and it's usually packed. It's a very small room. So we're gonna do it downstairs for the time being. Plenty of more space down there. We just had the officers screen them up here in the lobby and then send them down. And it works fine. So we'll plan to do that again in June. And everything else I've been working on, we're gonna address later.
Okay, thank you very much. Jason, we'll turn it over to you.
Alrighty. The kind of start at the top here, COVID-19 phase 1.5. Well, that shows you how lot of day that was on Friday. So we're already at 1.75. I refuse to call it 2. So 1.75, which is fine. But
Not till Friday.
yeah, not till Friday. I think everybody's kind of already there anyways. But really, when it's done, we'll go through here to cite these next 2 items. It's just we've been working on opening plans, kind of like we've shared the last couple of meetings since I think the first phase started, since the reopening started, because it's just kind of a moving target and trying to figure out how do we fit youth sports. Not that it's not really our programming, they're using our complex, and then also the pool, if that's something that we're going to try to open. So thankfully, with that, let me get to that screen to share it here. I don't know how to change screen to share. So I'm going to do it this way. Sorry. So basically what we've been utilizing is the Kansas Parks and Recreation Association has some really thorough, for lack of a better word, but they're good guidelines. Sorry, this is hard to read here. If you'd like a copy, I can always email it to you. Just email me sometime this week. But they're really going to they have about 30 pages here, and it goes from playgrounds to pools to gymnastics, baseball, basketball, I can't even think of, all sorts of splash pads, bathrooms, what's that? Volleyball, yep. And it kind of has a phase. Of course, this has been a changing document. I mean, I feel so bad. I mean, they just about get it done, and here comes the next one, and it changes again. So there's been quite a few iterations. That's going to be actually the biggest challenge with all this. Is you're going to do something, and people are like, well, I thought you could only do this. And that's not correct because it changed so drastically. Really, even though it doesn't seem like it, even between the first phase 2 and this new phase 2. A case in point, so we'll get right into it. I think the baseball, let me see here. Cool. Here we go. So here's kind of and this guide just kind of gets sent out to everybody, the coaches, and basically just asking them to do their best to follow these guidelines. And kind of what we try to do is loop that in with what the KRPA has recommended to the best we can, obviously talking to Courtney, and then just what's practical. And so this is basically we're saying, hey, May 22nd, as we all know, and everybody that's into this is well aware, is when you can start practicing. And really what they're looking for, one of the big changes between the original phase 2 and this new phase 2 is before it was 30 people in phase 2, right? So, but that included basically 30 people at a field. So that was players, coaches, spectators, all this other stuff. And I think kind of like everybody said, there's kind of some common sense, I think, that prevailed, even though we went to 15, but I think once I explain this, it'll be better. But, you're in this huge outdoor area. Why 30? By the time you get the players involved, I mean, you got 5 people that can be in the stands. So this new one, the way it is it's 15, but it doesn't count anybody in the playing the game. Okay, so your people are in the game. You could have combined 20 kids plus the umps, the coaches. You might have 30 people out there total. Doesn't include them. So then what it's going to is this new definition, or this definition, which is tough for people to understand, but it's 15 people in a group. You can have more than 15 people in a group as long as you can maintain 6-foot social distance, just like at a restaurant right now. You can do groups of 10, but you could have 100 people in that restaurant if they can do the social distancing thing between those groups. So it's the same thing here. And really what they're trying to do, it's just for the contact tracing. That's really how they're going to manage this thing. And obviously trying to keep people from just catching it just by being in a huge crowd. But you could have 15 people on the third baseline, 15 people in this bleacher, 15 people in that bleacher, 15 people down the other baseline, which small town ball, small town here, that's going to take care of it, most times. So that's what it is. If you've been at some of the fields, we've done some things. We take the bleachers out of the dugouts, for example, the ones that we could, just so we don't have to worry about disinfecting. It's not that we don't want kids in there, but during I guess not the first phase, the second phase, it's really going to be, most of the teams that are playing right now are going to be mostly just practicing during that phase. Like, I know that the PUEs and little kids, they'll really say it would start as June 8th, which would be under phase 3. We'll put the bleachers back in, but that way as a coach, I don't have to sit there. We're gonna have spray bottles with hospital grade disinfectant that lasts for probably 4 hours. I can just hurry up and spray down the bleacher and walk out. This way it just removes that and just meet out in the grass. You know what I mean? Which is totally fine. You know what I mean? Those dugouts are small. I got 25 kids on my team anyway, so we ain't gonna meet in there anyway. So those are just some of the things, and then there's just some of the, another one's no sunflower seeds, which is tough. But again, I'm just gonna put on the coaches. If we want to play, if we want to do things right, I'll give anything up to be able to play, and that's not a big deal. So I'm not the best sunflower seed spitter either, but that probably makes sense because I know kids spitting them. I mean, they end up landing on somebody else, and everybody, that's just a drool factory right there. So stinks, but that's the way it is, and that's just life. So that's phase 2. phase 3, hopefully June 8th, would go to the 45. And again, that groups the 45, which again should fit our area pretty well. So anyway, so that's what we've been saying to the coaches, trying to educate them on, do as best they can with it. And again, I think falls within that whole framework of liability. I know some towns have, kind of said, oh, our insurance doesn't cover virus exposure. Well, yeah, no doubt. This wasn't even in their insurance, just like a lot of other things aren't in your insurance. But that's why you try not to be negligent, and that's why we have a lot of immunity as a city, and we do the things that we're supposed to do. It did have to rise to a pretty high level. I saw Jason out there just spitting seeds in that kid's face, and then he got coronavirus. What I mean? Like, it's like I didn't care. Disregard. We'll have signage, do all that stuff as best we can. Again, there's probably still going to be people that aren't sure of it, but they don't have to participate. So that's kind of the plan for those first few phases on the bowl games. The reopening guidelines for the pool. Again, we've been working on this. This is mostly just sheer will, I guess, of trying to do this. We're going to start lifeguard classes next week. And again, it's important because we obviously supply lifeguards for surrounding pools, but we also provide guards for the wellness center, our own pool, and it's our, it's a summer job for kids. So we'll do that week. That first phase, pool won't be open during that time. We just don't have, there's just 15 people. We're not going to be able to really control social distance in there very well. This is still open for interpretation. Again, this is just my best first swing at. I haven't actually sat down with Courtney on this. So I did the old phase 2, but not the new phase 2 with 45. But basically what we're going to do with the 45 is have a scheduling system. So I purchased a little piece of software that they made really affordable, a system that is good at scheduling or whatever. You can go online. That way kids could reserve their 2-hour time block to go swim. That makes sense. It was like $50 a month. This company has made this as a solution for everybody. And so basically they could set their time, go swim for 2 hours. That way we could keep it. If we wanted 60 kids, it would just show full once it was full. And so now it's 45. I got to talk to Courtney, and then that brings us down to 30. But again, I'm just trying to make something happen and hoping that maybe by middle of June or whatever, it's maybe more wide open. And so then we did all that work for a good cause. Plus, I'm just stubborn. I want kids to be able to try to swim if they can. So, we'll get them safely. Lynn, as you know, is very thorough. So we're going to log our cleanings and how we're cleaning. And again, we had that hospital grade disinfectant. We were lucky enough through our provider to be able to get a hold of that stuff and our sanitation. So we have a sanitization plan. Things like the lazy river aren't going to be open primarily because of all the tubes and having to deal with that. The thing we're really running up against a little bit is the number of lifeguards. Primarily because again they're starting to try to find other jobs because it's kind of shaky if we can open. Not our fault. I mean, just the governor keeps pushing that back, and I get it. So we're just limited on space. But again, I think at this point, if, you don't tell the kid, they're not going to care. As parents, we have to help understand a little bit better. A kid just gonna be, oh, it's wet, it's water, yeah, that's awesome. So at least my kid will be. So we'll have that. We're gonna work on. A lot, so that'll help us log who's there again for the contact tracing. So if we did have a kid get sick, then we kind of know who was all there that day. And again, water, the sun, the open air, it doesn't seem to be based. And now they just came out that the surfaces, it doesn't really stay on very well either. I think it's going to be a fine environment when it's all said and done. So again, so that's kind of the two pronged plan. So probably the earliest the earliest that we would open would be that June 8th date. And once I get the interpretation, if Courtney's, because our deck area is huge, including the pool. I mean, you do their definition of area, we could get 175 patrons in there. Actually, no, we could do even more based on their definition. You do my definition, area of the circle, you get 175. So we got a lot of space in there. So just talking to Courtney about, she considered that 2 groups of 45. I would still keep it, maybe 50, 60 at first per time block just to get us used to it. But we're working through that. No pool parties. And we'll maybe do swimming lessons, but at first it won't be swimming lessons. We're just trying to keep it simple and just trying to, there's other opportunities for swimming lessons at the wellness center during the winter. And again, things are going great. That's not hard for us to schedule. You know what I mean? That's something that, July 1st, things are opening up. We feel good about it. We got a good system, then boom, we'll schedule swimming lessons the end of July, But our goal is just trying to get used to that normal, that new, or I say that abnormal, get it open. If that makes sense. So pool itself is going pretty good. We did have to probably had our first big mechanical fatality here with it, this year, that's the 8 years we've had it, besides the pipe stuff, one of our pumps failed on it, so we did have to get a new pump, and that's about $8,000-9,000, but made it 8 years, and it's a pretty tough environment, so it's pretty normal, but otherwise, everything turned on, worked great, so now we exercised it just for that reason. So anyways, anybody have any questions on those? Yeah, Andrew?
Well, it's regarding the parks itself. We've had groups obviously put in reservations in some cases a year plus in advance to reserve, like Chautauqua, etc. How are we communicating with them? How are we deciding for those group events that
Sure.
are
Yeah, so
okay?
kind of how I'm handling that is we've added addendum to our reservation form that anybody that's even got it, like say the white building reserved now, they're gonna have to sign it, they'll follow whatever the guidelines are at that time. A lot of people canceled. About the only ones we have pulled on right now is the NA group. I just talked to him this week. And I just kind of told him, I was like, I can't guarantee anything, with their large group. I think they're kind of, a lot of groups are self-taking care of. I basically, the one thing I did tell him was like, just no pool party. I'm just not going to do it. So they were understanding, we're going to figure out showers for them if they want to do showers. But we'll see, on that. But yeah, we are, most of those groups have either reached out or we've talked to them or they've already done something with it. So about the only change we had down there right now, and it's really temporary. So if you're getting questions about it, I'm going to actually talk to Lynn about it tomorrow. But we did close the camping spots for a couple of days here I think the end of last week, because we were just having all sorts of out-of-towners and other not so great things happening down there, that it was causing Lynn a lot of heartburn and Doug a lot of heartburn, with all the other stuff they've already got trying to figure out. So we just closed it for a little bit. I think Nebraska's opened up their parks, from what I understand, or a lot of them here in the middle of this week. So hopefully that'll help migrate that back up so we can get it opened up before maybe Memorial Day weekend like it was. So we haven't heard too much about it. Most people are pretty used to all this, the whole spiel, but it wasn't because we're trying to follow any guidelines. We were just kind of more of a spur of the moment decision. I'm like, okay, let's just clean the slate. We'll start back over here because it was, yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think they were thinking they could hide out down there. Nobody's going to pay attention to them. So, and that's just not what it's for. It's not a campground. It really is. We just offer it as a courtesy. So, but yeah, that's kind of what we're doing here. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay. Sorry, lots of talking. The THN second quarter update again. Hopefully you saw that in your packet. That's looking, really good. We had a really good quarter here, kind of like we talked about last year. We kind of got a little bit wonky because that's the one quarter we had bad, so it kind of set us on a bad course. Again, we weren't off by much. I mean, we were 81 like the last few quarters, just above it, but this quarter was really good, and it dropped us. This is going to basically help us stay pretty good shape as long as we keep following those quarters. But again, we've learned to test. We test more often, all those things. So again, the max is 80, and we're down at that 71. So you kind of saw it in your back. I kind of wanted to show that to you guys, especially you newer guys, of how that's been going down here the last. Sorry, I'm going to try to turn it with everything, but as you can see, as we're just up here the last few quarters, and then we're getting a nice trend down again. So really excited about that. Really happy about that. It's taking a lot of work. Water treatment plant update. I really don't have a lot besides just kind of hearsay based on USDA. They are working on it. Again, it's a funding issue, and I'm kind of learning this is the game they play, but we're one of their top things. There's a couple of water districts. I know Russell's got a big project they're trying to do, not the town, but the water district on there. But we're one of their favorites. It's just a matter of acquiring enough funding to make it go. So they're trying to see what they can scrape together this round. If not, it'll be that September round. But Stuart and I have been talking. I'm not prepared to bounce off you guys yet, but we do have KG in order. We have the construction financing. It's something we start moving forward with the design work and get that going. we're gonna get something from USA, we're gonna get something, but, and it's not gonna be money wasted, but that way, if it does September, we get the good word, we're not 4 more months behind, you know what I mean? We can kind of start getting that done. I'm kind of inclined to it, but I just didn't have the brain power to think about it here the last couple of days, so I'll let you guys know on that, but I've been in contact with them. Mandy and I have both been sending emails to squeaky wheel people, you know, but it's just kind of the games they play.
What are you basing your optimism on?
What's
I mean,
that?
What are you on getting our money because of all this COVID stuff and this $1 trillion aid packages they're talking about? It's
Sure.
like, where's all this money coming from?
Sure. I would say just history.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what do they do when they want to try to get things going again? They want infrastructure and shovel-ready jobs and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, they've done it before, and I guess they're going to do it again. You know, so yeah, man, nothing. You know, I'm just trying to be an optimistic. Yeah, just in general, I get you. Yeah, but you know, if it's a 4-year delay, that design work we did, and there's really no window on that draw on that loan. I mean, I have to pay some interest on it, but on the construction side of it. But if it's 4 years from now before they finally give us money, then guess what? We're ready to rock and roll. So I'll talk more about, and I'll talk to Stuart more about getting more educated on it. I don't want us to do the wrong thing or throw money away at it, but I also want to keep going.
When they did the survey for any cultural
Yes, sir.
issues,
Yeah.
did they ever fully close that out, saying we were good to go on that, or was there
Yes.
still open? I remember there was that one turn of the where there was like a set, the known Native American
It's
site.
all fine. Yeah, so it's all good. Yeah, that's why they gave us a commitment letter with all those things. Yes, because we kind of figured out a solution, and we never did hear from one of the tribes, but again, it's they get past that window, they're good. So yeah, doesn't mean it's like any project. We get halfway digging on that thing, we find something, but well, just like every other project, we'll figure it out when we get there. But yeah, yep. Okay, 8th Street project. So this is causing me a lot more gray hair than I used to have. Something I thought was going to be so simple, but we're making progress. We do know we got 2 big trouble spots, but honestly, I heard from the 3 guys today, and they're like, you know what? I think it's going to turn out pretty good. We'll fix those 2 spots. I felt they were pretty happy. You know, they're pretty encouraged. You know, so we got it. You know, they kicked butt today and got it all sealed. We had the rain wasn't great to us right after we did that project. That was really killed us. And then we're going to take Monday to get everything kind of fixed up and ready to go. And then Tuesday morning at 7, we had all our trucks parked up there and everything loaded and ready to go. And I got my hair cut legally at 7:30. Came back and drove up there, and there was nobody making chip seal stuff. I was like, what happened? They're like, oil never showed up. And so I was like, oh man. So I guess Click called their corporate office in Tulsa and laid into them. So he's like, yeah, somebody probably got their butt ripped, that's for sure, because that was supposed to be here. So that really screwed us up. So I was amazing how they got a lot of it double chipped. They got the lay down portion single chipped, at least mostly sealed except for the trouble spots. And then like the west side, which turned out really good. I mean, if you've driven the west side or the east side, sorry, at 24 over there, that's going to be really great. They got that double chipped. I mean, so a lot of it done. They at least got it covered up before the rains for the most part. And so they got a plan for the 2 trouble spots. They might get a little ugly here before they get better, but they got a plan for it, and they'll go get it all double chipped the rest of the way. So, but yeah, they would have their oil yesterday and today. We would have had pretty much all of it double chipped except for those trouble spots, and we'd be ready to go. But they wouldn't think they were even gonna get the rest of it. You know, they're gonna get some of that sealed up, and I was like, oh my gosh, and it's gonna rain, it's gonna make it a mess, you know. And so then I drove out on it after work, and they pretty much just got one coat on all of it, so that made me feel a lot better. But I think the side on Katie, on the side over by you, it turned out a lot better once it's back down. I mean, it's gonna be again. If I took better before and after pictures of the plane part, I should have done that side too. But that once you got over that hill, which nobody ever saw, it was pretty blown out. So I think it's gonna be a lot better situation. But that's the story. If anybody has questions or whatever, just have them call me. I mean, seriously, I have no problem talking to them about it. It's kind of hard to explain and why those 2 spots are happening, but they just got a little thin there. Mud under there, so we'll have to get some base under it, and then we'll get it. Special meeting again is tomorrow night, 5:30. We'll just meet here quick if we can, knock it out. It's basically that CDBG grant that just came up out of nowhere. So Heather and Hartman and she's going to talk here in a second. So I won't say too much about it, but I've been working really hard on it. So I'll let her explain exactly what it's for. But just remember tomorrow night at 5:30, it should be a 5-minute job. So kind of in and out. So the last thing I'll do before I turn it over to her, sorry it's so long-winded. If you remember, we hired Hub International to help us with our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. It's been awesome. Guy was spot on with what our renewal is going to be, which was just nasty, about a 23% increase. But he's already found enough solutions that aren't going to be earth-shattering to the plan at all. I think to get it down to the low single digits. Got some great solutions for possible self-funding and maybe pulling the trigger on that. Again, on the outside, the employee, they won't notice the difference whether we keep it through Blue Cross or it'll still be Blue Cross or we self-fund it. But I'm not going to get too deep into it. He's gonna run a few more little things for us. And he might either be here June 3rd or the June 20th meeting to really run through it. But of course, I'm going to be biased because I recommend hiring, but I don't know. It was probably the best health insurance meeting I've ever sat through as far as understanding it and just being like, oh, okay, it's just so simple. So I think a $10,000 saved us about $185,000 off our renewal so far. So it was, and he just wasn't happy. He just like boom, boom, boom. Took him about a week to get it figured out. And, he just knows what to do. So it's been a really, really good thing. I think we're going to be hopefully really happy with it. So again. I won't get too deep into that, but there's more really good stuff coming for you guys to build. Make kind of basically two forks in a row. What decision you want to make, and should be a good thing. So Heather, sorry, Tom.
No, that's fine. You're running the deal, so that's fine. Good evening, Heather.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So it was right on last Monday, we got surprised with a announcement by Governor Kelly, a $9 million support for economic development. Those all come through the Community Development Block Grant Program. The funding did not get open. The application wasn't open until Tuesday. One of the things, kind of like a lot of other things that made it difficult, was that no one got to see that application prior to Tuesday. So even our grant administrators didn't get to see it prior to us all seeing it at the same time. Just as kind of how things have worked during this pandemic. But we've been pouring over the information, and thankfully, it's up to you guys, but we'd really like to be able to work with North Central Regional Planning Commission on this again. Economic development grants are established, especially through CDBG, to provide communities with funding to help businesses retain jobs for low to moderate income employees. So that's kind of where the caveat always is with CDBG. Even in our housing program that we're already doing now, that's to help low to moderate income homeowners or renters. So this one's the same way. It's just going to help our businesses that employ low to moderate income people as employees. Just some things that for our businesses, things that they can use the grant funds for. They can use them for expenses such as working capital. So they can use them for wages, utilities, or rent. And then my favorite is they can use them to purchase up to 60 days worth of inventory needed to reopen once they're allowed to reopen. That one's kind of unheard of. It's something that we've never really done before, so it's kind of an interesting way for them to be able to use some of that funding. For a business to be eligible for funding, 51% of the employees must meet the low to moderate income. So obviously if there's 4 people, 3 of them have to meet that low to moderate income threshold. I have some tables that I think Jason maybe shared them with you, but I can give you some numbers. So if they're a single person, they can't make over $37,450. If they're a 2-person family, it can't be over $42,800. And if it's a family of 4, they can't be over $53,450. So you can see it's not extremely low, but it's definitely, if there's a 2 working household, that might be hard to qualify. But a 1 working household or with several children, you should be able to qualify pretty easily. One of the very first things that we did, we found out about it on, I guess the program opened on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we went ahead and reached out to the majority of our businesses. I did it through a Facebook post on our private Facebook account with all our businesses, and then I also sent out an email to about 80 of our businesses. I kind of just gave them the general information about it and then said, tell me how COVID has affected you or things that you've done differently because of COVID, because that's kind of what we need in the narrative. Again, I'm very thankful that so far we are going to hopefully agree to help and hire North Central Regional Planning Commission, since their entire territory is open to this because it goes across the whole state. They split up their staffing, and so our staff person from NCRPC will be Keegan Bailey. She's been amazing so far. It is a $9 million grant that comes through the CARES Act. So it's money that has to come in and go out very quickly through the CARES Act. So it's $9 million. The max any community can get is $300,000. At this time, what we're looking to do is apply both from the city of Beloit and then apply from Mitchell County. So city of Beloit funds would stay right inside the city, and then the county funds could not come to any business within the city if we're successful for both. What we had to do was, one of the first things we had to do was publish for a public hearing, and we did that last Friday in the paper. So we had that out pretty much as soon as we could, because the first day we could have done it, and then we have to wait 5 business days or 7 full days between that public hearing or between the publication and the actual public hearing. So tomorrow night is our public hearing for the city of Beloit, and then Friday morning we'll have a public hearing for the county. The businesses were extremely generous and things that they gave me to help us write the narrative. There really was only 4 questions for a narrative. How has the business been affected? I can tell you what it is. Explain the needs for the funds and how they're related to COVID-19. How would the funds help reduce the setbacks of COVID-19? Make sure there's no other source of funding, but that means CDBG funding, and then describe the activities proposed. You only got 2 pages to do the whole thing, so it's pretty short and sweet. It is on a first come, first served basis. I want you to know that I really feel like we did everything we could to be the first in line. Our paper only comes out 3 days a week. You could not do it virtually. It actually had to be a publication in a paper. I still feel like we're ahead of a lot of other smaller communities because their papers are only 1 time a week. So we are ahead of some, but there will only be 30 across the state if everyone asks for the max. So it is a first come, first serve. There's definitely some urgency in this. I did talk to Keegan again this evening, right before we came on, and I think we're really only missing, we need an affidavit from the paper, and I'm hoping, Jason, you got that tonight. So we should be pretty close to being able to send that in as soon as you guys meet tomorrow night. Any questions? Sorry, allergies. I promise it's allergies.
Maybe we just got that through the speaker.
I know. I was trying to hit mute and I couldn't find it fast enough. Oh man.
Yeah, so Heather and to pick up while she's coughing there, Heather and Keegan have worked really hard to get all that stuff done. I mean, it's just one of those, I don't know how much they're gonna read it, but it's kind of more of a race to get it in time. So I think we met, all the check boxes and raced as hard as we could to get it in there. So kudos to Keegan and Heather and getting that all ready to go. And thank you guys for being flexible and meeting quick tomorrow night. We'll get her submitted and cross our fingers.
Just like to say thanks for your hustle, and let's get her going.
I know, we're pretty excited. It could really make a huge difference. The businesses were pretty giving in the information that they shared. Some of the things that I hadn't even thought about, but March, April, May are some of our busiest months, especially for our restaurants out on the highway and our hotels because of track meets and graduations and NCK Tech. And I mean, I had a business share with me that April last year to April this year, they lost over $48,000, and it's a small business. So it made a huge difference, and we know it did. It'll just be the ability to get some of those funds that you can never recover back into some of these businesses would be pretty helpful. So they can get a max for under 5 employees, they can get a max of $30,000 per business. And then over 5 employees, they can get a max of 50. But we can set those parameters up if we want to go less than that, we just can't go more. So once that, when we are funded, we'll have the ability to kind of control what that looks like. It will all be on invoices. And so anything that's occurred after March 1st, that they have purchased after March 1st is eligible. So it really does have some wide open descriptions of how they can use that funding.
So how many applicants do you think we'll have, and how many do you think we'll be able to fund when we're done?
Yes, so I do have some budgets, and we can move that money around, and we'll have that for you guys to look at tomorrow night. So I think what we ended up setting on was $110,000 for the micro grant, so for the businesses under 5, and then $175,000 $30,000 for the economic development grant is what we looked at. But we can switch that around. That's about, like when I did a little survey of most of them, that's kind of where I'm thinking they are. I have a few that I still haven't gotten in touch with, but I kind of know what their employees are like, and I think we could probably fund some of those too. The county, just so you're curious, if you're curious, the county will be a lot more in the smaller grants because there's not a lot of businesses in the county that employ more than 5 people.
But
That would be eligible.
Within that, how many do you, I mean, I guess that just depends on what we set those limits at, you know,
Right.
but it's 10
Right.
businesses or 20, you know, just, and that's kind
Exactly.
of what PRPC and kind of figure that out, how to best make an impact and still spread it as far as we can.
And we are proposing, I can tell you, we're proposing that we are going to help 5 businesses with funds 30,000 and under. Businesses with 6 or more employees, the city feels that they can assist 4. So that's if we're doing it the max funding. So we can obviously set that. If it's a single individual, which they're eligible if they're under the LMI and they're an independent or sole proprietor, we could set that as low as, you know, 2,000 or 3,000, 5,000, whatever. But we have the ability to do that. We are very thankful. I listened on to a 2-hour webinar this week. They will give us some guidelines and some rubrics for what those applications will look like. I'm assuming they'll be pretty specific, kind of like the housing. We didn't have a lot of things that we could change with the housing rubrics, and I'm thinking this will probably be the same. I'm assuming it's LMI, you know, how many employees you have. I don't know. I can't imagine what it's going to look like, but there are some samples out there for us. So that'll help.
That'll be kind of the next phase. We're going to help someone get the application filled out, kind of some of the details will be the next part probably.
Right.
I have a
That's what we're hoping. Keep your fingers crossed. Yep.
on a second topic. Mitchell County Strong, what's the numbers finally looking like? Guys,
Yep.
we're wrapping that up pretty, we're
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So where we are now, I have those right here. We are at 52,320 in gift card sales, over 52,000 in auction funds. We have 28,126 right now in disaster relief. We've done 66 families that we've helped with grocery assistance. It's been a little over $4,000. I can't remember if I told this group or someone else, but we did talk to the Beloit Ministerial Alliance, and they also have not had a lot of requests for food pantry or food bank items because we just thought we weren't reaching the right people, but evidently it's kind of what's happening across the board. We still feel like that will continue on throughout the summer and that might grow. We just don't have very many. This week, I think we only had 6 applications. So what we have done, because we have all that money in disaster relief, is we sent out a survey to all of our nonprofits. It was pretty successful. I think we have 30 or 35 surveys that have been returned. It was pretty simple. It was a Survey Monkey. We wanted to make it pretty easy, but we wanted to know what your nonprofit is doing, how you've been affected, have you had any fundraisers canceled, what plans do you have to move forward, what kind of things do you need, do you have any new programs because of COVID? And then our hope is, and we meet, I think next week sometime, our hope is then to be able to have a simple application process to maybe do some micro grants for those nonprofits to be able to get that disaster relief fund to people that are actually doing some of that work. So that's where we are. That's what we're hoping to see. We have another idea, one more idea. Julie and I have an idea. Colleen thinks we're crazy, but we'd really like to do some sort of social distancing event this summer since so many other things are canceled or postponed. So if you like The Amazing Race, you might want to call me because I'm going to need some ideas because we have an idea to do something throughout the whole county. So I love it, but we're going to have to figure out how it works. So keep your ears open. Be something fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, gentlemen? All right.
Thank you.
You got anything from Dave?
No, they've been kind of starting to ramp themselves back up. And like you said, speeding was getting a little bit chronic here the last 2 weeks. I noticed at my house, especially, so I think they'll kind of rein that back in a little bit. And then the other big bus.
Good stuff last night.
Yeah, so 3 o'clock in the morning, don't driving through, just, yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I did have a question. What was the power outage the other day?
What power outage?
Oh, okay. The one that took out my computer. So that one.
Yeah. Yeah, so I put a Facebook post on it. So we had that 2 weeks ago too. And first we thought it was kind of, we had a guy working inside the circuitry doing some stuff, and we kind of thought it was operator error, that brief one. But then kind of we were doing some other maintenance on it, and kind of in a sense happened again. First we're like, man, we're gonna start a new category. We're doing so good on our power outages, and all of a sudden it two kind of self-inflicted, or so we thought. But the kind of the guru that really helps us with this, we have an engineering outfit that helps us, and technicians that help us with our power grid. And he's like, it shouldn't be doing, those types of situations. It should not be tripping the whole system off like that. So he thinks there's some sort of ground fault. Again, I don't know these things within the kind of the relays, kind of the guts of the control panels within the power plant that help hold down. So he was actually in there today working on it. So I did put a Facebook post, hey, he said it shouldn't trip off when I'm doing this stuff. If it does, this is like I'm trying to find it, trying to trace it down. So that's what it is. Yeah. So it was just, that's why they were so brief, because it was just, but it, kind of what they're diagnosing at this point, like it shouldn't, even in those circumstances, it really shouldn't be doing that. So, so they think that there's something inside of it that's making it so sensitive to any sort of whatever they're doing in there to maintain stuff. So that's what it is. So, we used to have problems with squirrels and tree branches. Now we're going to put,
I don't like doing monkeys.
humans. Yeah, exactly. So
I was just kind of curious.
yeah, no, that's what it is. Trust me, I think guys are so trained on it now to where they want to, they were kind of really liking how we pretty much hardly ever have power outages anymore, that, man, they get really worked up about it. So it helps them. They're pretty motivated to get it figured out. So they're kind of down. They're like, man, keep having, people keep tripping it off within the plant. Not quite what's going on. So you'll get it figured out.
Okay, well then I just kind of,
Yeah, no worries.
since I'm not a Facebook, I can't.
Yeah, that's fine. No, it's a good question. Yeah.
So if you don't have a computer, how can you fix it?
Yeah.
Well, my computer is fine. It depends on the see where I see it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Next item on the agenda this evening will be the consent agenda. And entertain a motion to pass it in its entirety. So been moved by Councilman Graybon to approve the consent agenda in its entirety. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Meyer. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda this evening under the consent agenda, under ordinances, is ordinance 2271, the rezoning property located at 617 right of way. Got any more than what was in
So
there?
this kind of went through all the public notices, all that kind of stuff with the Beloit Planning Commission. This is actually the Dunstan facility out there. And so kind of based on several KDHE inspections, they need them to be doing certain things, which they're going to meet those requirements. One of those to be zoned correctly for what they're doing up there. Basically, they're like the recycling, they bring it all in, they unload it, and then put it onto one truck to take it. So KDHE didn't like how they were doing that, so they had to build a pad for it, all this other stuff. And if they're going to park their truck there, they have to have its own something other than commercial. So
They're building a building up there.
I think they are. Yeah, I'm not real familiar with that. But,
Okay.
so that's what it is. Pass through. So you guys are the ratifying body.
So been moved by Councilman Graybon to approve ordinance 2271. Have a second. Second by Councilman Dingler. Any comments? No further comments. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 2272, the fireworks, to kind of take it back the way it was previously.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
So moved.
Been moved by Councilman Graybon to approve ordinance 2272, the fireworks ordinance. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Adolph. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda under formal actions is the cop tracks revised quote for the police department. And this is where they
Yeah, we
forgot
kind of
to-
had a misunderstanding of how that was all is. I apologize for bringing this back like this, but I didn't feel like, oh, it's close enough to pass it through. So this is basically for 3 installs on the camera. We only priced in the quote 1 install, and there's obviously free system. So that's why it's revised up a little bit. But again, still really worth it.
It's another $1,500 a piece worth of installing. And
I think that's about right.
near
Yeah,
that figure.
about 1,200, I think is what it ends up being roughly. So yeah.
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilman Gingler that we approve the copper trucks revised quote. Got a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Meyer. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item is the FAA CARES Act grant agreement.
You've heard me say a few times the last couple of meetings about a $30,000 grant that we're going to get just for operating expenses out at the airport as part of the CARES Act, I guess. So this is just the agreement that we signed with the FAA to receive those funds. So they can be used for any expense affiliated with the operation of the airport. And since we basically fund our expenses through the general fund, it just will be that much less of an impact on the actual general fund tax dollars. And we'll just use that to pay for the utilities and airport manager and all kind of just the normal expenses for operating that. So
It's kind of funny that we need to take a vote to accept money.
I know, yeah, I know. I almost forgot too, but then me, hey, don't forget this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have to.
Councilman Audi, move we approve the FAA CARES Act grant agreement. Second, Councilman Gingler. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
The move by Councilman Graybon that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Meyer. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Yeah, I try to give you easy ones once in a while.
Yeah.
30,
Do you wish to have money? Yes or no?
I guess.
No, we really don't want to take them.
Other than on the FAA, I'm sure there'll be someday, like, well, you can't mow that grass over there. 'Cause I remember that one time you took that 30 grand. Like, oh.
We'll give them back.
Yeah.
Okay, we stand there. We'll go into the workstation. Katie, do you have anything at this time?
No.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll go to the Mitchell County Rural Water District number 1 water contract.
All righty. And maybe for the sake of discussion, we'll just kind of talk 1 and 3 because they're really kind of the same deal that I'm proposing with it. So, oops, do it that way. Obviously, there's a lot of years of thinking about this. We talked to them about a year ago, and I kind of gave them kind of a basic number of what to expect. And Mandy's done a lot of financial work on it. Stuart had under that joint feasibility, so I kind of took some of the different parts of that, kind of put them together, kind of did the last 2 years, kind of a pro rata of what that would look like with what I would propose for a rate for them. First of all, about the contract here, Kate, I just kind of took what Katie had said. She hadn't really looked at this. I just kind of tweaked a few things in it, and we'll get this kind of worked out. But long story short, Bree's ready to go. I mean, they'd buy water from us today if they could. So they're ready to go. So we're basically what I want to be able to do after this meeting, hopefully, is get it crushed up a little bit, give it to them so they can approve it, and then we'll approve it at our June 3rd meeting. We'll turn on the faucet June 4th. Probably initially, they won't be ready to take the full gamut. Yeah, they still got to do some system changes out in their system, but they basically take about 9 million gallons a month. So they might be taking half of that initially. Probably what I'll do in here is, I didn't get that in here yet. I want to talk to Katie about it, but put some language in here about, within 6 months, you will be buying your water exclusively from us or something like to that effect, just to get them done. I already have in here as well, especially with 3. Now 1 already has a minimum in there. It's just been in there forever, so I just kind of left it there. But with 3, they weren't real keen on the minimum thing, so instead I just put exclusive, buy your water exclusively from us. Just that was kind of my concession to it, but still wanting to make sure that they're not, going around to different entities to buy water, which I don't feel they will after they've invested what they have and they get hooked up to us. So there might be that addition to this language as some sort of and I'll talk to Mike. We got just somebody that, hey, when do you think you'll have everything to go for us? I want to put them in a tight spot, but I don't want it to go on for 2 or 3 years where they're buying half the quantity of water from us. Sorry, this is number 2. Couple ones. The other thing that is in here that Katie had written in here, and up tomorrow, but is talking about kind of the term and the rate increase. Obviously, we put pretty strongly in here that, hey, this is kind of the rate for now, if that makes sense, you know, and kind of what I'm proposing is just a flat rate. I don't want to monkey around with, you know, ECAs and PCA, all this other stuff. It's just what it is. We have language in here that if things go crazy, we can renegotiate, we redo the rate with them. And obviously, one of the big caveats we have in here is that hey, we're trying to build a new water plant. They're aware of that. They know that right here today probably isn't going to be the rate tomorrow, you know, but we're also going to try to not go crazy with it either. So otherwise, it's a 10-year agreement, you know, renews every year after that unless they give 6 months notice prior to the end of the term to cancel that. So kind of what I'm proposing for both entities, 1 and 3 at this point, is just to go to 310 per thousand for both of them. So 310 per thousand. Again, really what we're trying to do is cover our variable costs. You know, we have our fixed costs, our plant, it's always going to be there. It is, but you know, our chemicals, electricity, different things like that. We want to make sure we cover that plus some equipment reserve. And again, just having that additional volume of water helps all of us, helps our utility as a whole. So kind of what I've done is kind of try to go through and just kind of do some analysis building on that and kind of trying to come up with what's that, you know, what are some of those variables, what's that per thousand cost look like, translating that to that new gallonage that we're going to have. Basically, you know, we do about 153 million gallons a year between one and ourselves. There'll be an additional roughly 100 million gallons that will be coming through that plant. So it'll be a good thing when it's all said and done. Kind of the bottom line down here is kind of where I kind of projected what we've had in the past. This includes the system expense. Obviously, we're within. We want to really make sure we're covering our production, some of our production expense, especially the variable cost, and the non-production, you know, like any equipment reserve or anything like that. And so you kind of see last year we kind of were at a loss, or 2018, which again that fund kind of just right here, you know, so it had a slight loss last year. Or 2 years ago. Last year we pretty much had it even because basically we just kind of turn on, and really that's a misnomer. That we transferred, you know, 150,000 equipment reserve, so it had enough cash. We just paid ourselves. Okay, so same with 2019. Again, we turned the equipment reserve off because it's a little bit tighter last year. We had a little bit more professional expense. And that's the other thing that's kind of inflating our fund. You know, we're paying the engineer a lot of money the last couple of years to get our current plant up to snuff, but also just kind of get some of the legwork done on the, you know, we're to the tune of about 100 or 80,000 2 years ago and about 140,000 last year. You know what I mean? But that's the cost of doing business, unfortunately. Steve Stewart driving a new pickup or something, you know. But I can't figure it out, so it's just what you gotta do. So again, we turn that off. And that's what, you know, Mandy really watched that. She might even turn it on for a while and then just back it out, or turn it on just to kind of get that fund to be zero at the end of the year if that's what needs to happen. I kind of plugged in the idea of leaving some sort of equipment reserve as I tried to refigure that rate. So I felt like, hey, you know, we do 310. You know, really we're need to be at the this number here, 272 and 274. So that 310 gives us some fluff. You know, some Jason doesn't quite calculate it right, or you know, things change a little bit, which is just normal. Just to make sure that we have enough in there to do that. You know, just pure, basically that's about right where I had figured it. That's about right where Stewart's figured it. I think that's kind of within the range of different ways that Mandy's looked at it, trying to figure out what's those variable costs and how do we do this. And then when I've talked to them, but if the new plant comes online, it's probably going to be more in that, I guess, just guess, 340 to 360 number when we're all said and done. But again, those are kind of the ballpark numbers I've talked to them about the last year or two. So anybody have any questions on that?
With their ECA, what are they paying right now?
The Rule 1.
Rule 1.
I think they're paying in the low 3s, you know, mid 3s, you know, so that's why you don't have 2 big bulk customers now. Kind of helps spread that a little bit. Yeah.
So in this contract, so it's EPA, we go down the road a few years and there's more mandates coming up, coming to hand it down to us, normally unfunded. Yeah, that would cost us more money. We'd be able to pass those
Yeah.
on.
And that's something that we never did with the Rule 1 you know, I guess I would say if you're ever considering raising the rates for your city customers, you need to look at these contracts, and it allows you to do that. I mean, there's no reason for, you know, stuff comes along and we need, it's not a system issue. If it's a system issue, yeah, that's obviously city, but if it's a production issue, then we need to look at across the board and not just an increase for city.
I think within that utility, we kind of look at 3 different buckets. You know, we have production bucket, you know, revenue expense, I guess, really. Revenue's kind of covering all of it. Then we have the systems bucket expense, you know, so that's all the pipes, the crews that do that. And then we kind of have what we just call non-production. So that's kind of our transfer to employee benefit fund, you know, those that employees, and the transfer to the, you know, debt service. We had debt service, which really this fund has no debt service right now, except for a little bit for water meters. But you know, we paid off that big water line bond about 2 years ago, so that helped a lot. I backed that out of here just to keep it even Steven. And then yeah, so that's the big thing. Obviously, non-production will see a jump, and that's where we're going to see the majority of our jump here. You know, the chemicals will get offset by electricity. You know, kind of the cost of producing oil will be pretty much a wash, maybe hopefully a little cheaper, but with some different changes. But you're not production, that's where you're going to see some increase because of covering that bond, the new bond, you know, that new big one. So, but spread 7-8 million over 40 years, and you can stomach that. You know, so.
I'm comfortable moving forward with what you're showing here.
So. Yeah, we feel good. Yeah, I feel good about it. It's a win-win. So, and at this point, not gonna win. We're dealing with really good water. You know, we really are. Considering what we have to treat and what we're dealing with, the age of our plant. I mean, we got that thing coming about as good as it's probably been in a long time.
The extra volume will be a real issue.
Yeah, I talked to Jim about that. Yeah, not really. I mean, that plant, we don't run it all day. I mean, you know, you're making water, you're making that stuff, but it is like a plant. They actually sit there and manufacture water for a set period of time. So, you know, from a staffing standpoint, we're fine, we're covered. So really, it's just going to be by modifying kind of some of the overlap. We might have a couple guys come a little earlier, a couple guys a little later, you know, just to expand the time period. But from a salary standpoint, we see no cost. I inflated the overtime. We have a lot of overtime in this crew. I inflated that just correspondingly to the increased production, just to cover myself. But yeah, there will be no personnel additions to do this at all. No, not at all.
Is there going to be issues with, since we're going to be having more customers, more volume, more pressure in the pipe system that may cause more breaks, or are we thinking that?
No, not really. That really won't change at all. The pressure will stay virtually the same because it's basically going to hook in up by the Pizza Hut. We upsize that to an 8-inch line, and so it'll just be water running in for a longer period of time, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be just like whether it was sitting there the same amount of pressure or actually flowing. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but yeah, it's not like we're having to just shove it up there and really push hard on it. I mean, they'll have their own pump to draw it up into there. You know, our towers will naturally push it that way, and it basically we got another mile of pipe that is just going to fill up and be right to them. Once it gets to them, they're in charge of their own pressure and distribution.
Now, if their pumps fail, we have a backflow.
Yes, sir. Yeah, all that stuff will be. Yep, exactly. Yep. I talked to them. We have there's a whole cabinet to ground up there of how they connected and a backflow prevent. Yes, all that stuff is there. Yep. So just like one, you know what I mean? Very similar situation. When we've got their own above ground storage, they've got their own way to pressurize the system, etc. We're just producing, you know, the water towers will have all that, and so we're just going to make a little bit more water just to make sure that those stay full for a longer period of time to serve that. Nice thing with 3 is they're a very steady customer, so there's not a lot of that's, you know, they're not, you know, July and August are not all water in the yards out in the country, you know what I mean? They don't have a huge flow with them, but it's a pretty steady Eddie deal, which makes it nice from a production standpoint. That, you know, obviously we know that we've got some of that in town, but not with them. The other thing we look at is, you know, water rights and diversion rights. We feel pretty good about it. It's definitely takes up that gap to some degree. You know, we have about 350 7 million gallons we have access to right now. So, you know, with the addition of this, it puts it at about 253-ish to 275, just depending, you know, I mean, a really crazy year, maybe 300, you know, so it takes up a lot of that slack that we've got. But kind of talked to Stuart quite a bit about it, talked to the Division of Water about it quite a bit. It's one of those things, you know, since this is a 1 to 3 year thing, you know, it's fine. You know, if it was going to be like this for the next 30 years, we probably want to go ahead and go to the Division of Water Resources, say, let's just go ahead and apply for a little bit more rights, just to give us ourselves some more coverage. But it's one of those, we're about to do that anyways with the whole new connection point. So we're just gonna, we're fine. You know, I've got a history of the last 40 years of Beloit and kind of project that over that. I mean, it'd be an insane year that would get us close to that, and we probably have 1 year of forgiveness that we say, oh, sorry, you know, but we got a lot of room in there. But so just in case you're wondering, that was looked at. We did look at that too. So.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, one more thing, just a math point, so everybody understands it. This is just a bulk customer, right? So we don't have to worry about their distribution. You know, they have their own rate structure, so they're taking that product and then reselling it. So in our opinion, we have one customer. That makes sense. You know what I mean? Like we don't, you know, it's not every whole utility. There's not a whole bunch of work we're doing. We're just like one. We just, how much more do you need? Okay, you know, there you go. You know what I mean? That's pretty much it. So.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Next item is the Animal Control Amendment Ordinance Review. We started on that.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Oh, I think our internet's going bad again.
I was gonna say, are we done?
Thanks, guys.
So we're gonna hit the highlights. We've adjusted the fine schedule. I think you guys have recommended that. We referenced that with regard to dog bites. This is different, and this is important. Anytime, and Doug requested this because there was some ambiguity before where we would only declare it a dangerous dog if the bite was vicious, and that left Doug kind of in predicament. How does he determine what's so now every single dog bite gets a dangerous dog declaration and then goes to judge for a hearing, not a criminal hearing, not anything like that. Just if they dispute that, they can go and ask for a hearing, and then there's a list of factors as to what happened during that incident that judge can determine whether that dog is dangerous or not, which then what determines whether they need to go into the category of needing insurance, muzzle, all of those requirements we have for dangerous dogs. So that's a big change, but I think it's important because it takes it out of our hands. Our, meaning myself or Doug or Jason or staff, trying to determine, you know, at a particular incident what happened. Well, here we can have a hearing. The person that was bit can be there and be heard. The owner of the dog can be there, and they can argue with their arguments, and the judge will make a decision based on that, what to do with the dog. So that's a big change. We do have a couple things where you have multiple convictions. You cannot own a dog for a period of 5 years. So there's a couple things in there that's new. We're just really trying to get those multiple offenders and.
No, when you say conviction, are you talking about a conviction of your dog biting somebody? Or?
Yes, if you're declared a dangerous dog and your dog keeps getting out after twice, if that dog is dangerous, meaning it had previously bitten somebody, declared dangerous, and it gets out twice, the dog goes away and you don't get to have dogs for 5 years. I think a lot to get to that point.
How are you going to enforce that? House checks?
Well, I mean, if they come to court with a running at large complaint, so if they get convicted twice.
He said like after.
Okay, yeah, so you take the dog away, I can't have dog, how you gonna know?
Well, if Doug sees them with their dog, if we have dog again, another incident, that's a new complaint under this particular statute, another fine. Like I said, Doug's pretty aware of what dogs are where in town.
30 in the jug and throw away the key.
Yeah. So you would, I mean, you'd be surprised.
It just gives them a little toolbox, but yeah, like I said, so it's probably one of those, like, we probably really won't be enforcing unless we see something egregious again. Well, not say we won't enforce it, but we may not know about it or see it until like, oh shoot, there's, you know, Jim Bob again with his
increase in these fines here.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it. The person's ability to pay the fine, what happens?
So, that is up to, judge is real good and aware of that there are provisions, under due process that if they don't have the ability to pay fines, that he can adjust that. Most of the time, what we do is we just give them time to pay. And if we give them enough time to pay, most people get it paid. But if they're absolutely, able to prove to him that they just can't pay fines, he sometimes does adjust that, but that's, I've never had that.
Can't really
I guess a
adjust
can't or a won't, so to speak. I don't know how else to.
Yeah, if they won't pay, we just go after them, we bring it back to court month after month, and eventually they get tired of us bugging them. So, but that, most of that with him adjusting fines down, that mostly comes when we have jail involved. We don't want to send people to jail if they absolutely cannot pay, but there's no jail time with these. So these, we have some on the books that are 2 years old. Every couple months we bring them in and they make a $25 payment. And, particularly the ones that have restitution, don't ever let them go and take that restitution date. The person with it, and get that reimbursed. But I will say, since we started all of this, we had some pretty bad offenders, and they've moved on out of town. So thankfully, sometimes these things don't involve themselves, but at least for next time, we'll have some of this in place. One thing that I did change, I guess I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. We had a provision in our animal code allowing horses, if they apply to you guys for some sort of permit, a special permit. Now we do have some places that have livestock in town and they are grandfathered and they will be grandfathered, but I didn't know if that was something we would.
So basically, if my neighbor had a horse, they would just have to apply for a special permit, and technically, if they were granted it, my neighbor could have a horse, basically, that you were allowing.
I'm gonna get a horse.
I don't have a pasture room now next door.
I do. I think I'm growing a lot of amazing grass.
We do have some areas that are grandfathered, they will remain grandfathered,
Right.
but I don't know.
I'm so glad no one watching.
Yeah.
Give
Does
Jason's
it
kids.
require the neighbor's approval or anything on that?
No, that's why I didn't really love it. It just said, a special permit,
I've never had
for the
anybody
city
ask for a
clerk.
horse.
I mean, it leaves it up to the city clerk. No, Andy, but I don't know. Andy wants to make that.
I mean, if we were gonna do something like that, I almost think you'd want to go through the planning commission, just like our regular process. Again, I don't know of a reason why in town, unless you have a grandfathered situation, why you need or desire, I guess, to own a horse.
Well, didn't we do some provisions in the plan or something about a certain amount of acreage they could have and stuff? So we do that, if you got, which is only like 4 properties in town, that, 4 or 5 acres in town.
Right, that's a little different though than
We kind of allow it, but yeah,
one lot.
a neighborhood shuttle phone.
Give rides in your backyard. I mean,
Yeah, so that was kind of the
Very
first
cute.
thing that I just took out. The other thing that we need to talk about is our leash law. So previously we had that animals are running at large if they are not on a leash or under voice control. Reading a lot of other ordinances, talking with Doug, it's our recommendation that we take away that voice control. What does that actually mean? It's it's up for interpretation. So I guess it's our recommendation that we have an actual leash law, which means leash. But again, that's up to you guys. That's up for discussion.
I gotta say, I'm personally opposed to that change for the reason that you can easily say, okay, your dog's under voice control, make him come and sit. Come, sit. And if they can't get it to do that, he's not under voice control. I don't see why is that.
The problem is it's after the fact, then it's a problem. Something happens.
Well, then clearly you're saying he's under control. Did you attack that person? Did you order?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're just trying to eliminate those instances because I think there's a lot of people think they have their dog under control. And I haven't haven't seen too many.
So people have been using that argument that their dogs.
Well, no, but we haven't loose dogs that probably, if we just thought it needed to be a leash, we could say, hey, it needs to be on a leash.
Doesn't really,
It just clarifies that. It just makes it one standard. It's just a thought. I mean, again, you guys can decide yay or nay, but
say a person's sitting on their front porch and they let their dog roam. So they can see the dog, technically the dog can probably hear them, but that dog may roam 4 houses down. And be a nuisance or whatever, crap in people's yard. So that's kind of the thing that I think helps prevent it. This isn't necessarily you're walking down the street on your own walk with your dog.
But that wouldn't be under voice control either if he's 4 or 5 houses away from.
Well, but people use that argument, why can you yell at him from home? He's not running at large, I know where he's at.
and it probably really won't be a big. Probably we're gonna drive around and be like, oh, where's your leash? You know what I mean? Necessarily, just like a lot of things, we don't have all people to do that. Kind of like obeying the speed limit. It's probably fine until it's not fine. So I don't know. Like, we're just really trying not every bad, just with loose dogs. And it just you 2 dogs are pumped up.
So
I don't.
playing out in your front yard with your dog.
Yeah.
It's not the issue.
Yeah.
When they're not on your property, that's.
I guess it gets rid of a lot of ambiguity about is he or is he under
That's
voice
really what
control.
we're trying to get around. Again, people on, I know people have the little park and and again, we're not out there policing it, but.
Yeah, this isn't an issue where Doug's not gonna drive around and start citing people. It's always, I would say, almost all these dog issues are after the fact, after we have an incident. How do we handle that? And it's pretty clear that dog wasn't on a leash. It was running at large. And then XYZ happened.
I appreciate the fact that you've really changed this so that we're.
Anything on Tim?
Sorry, Terry. I appreciate the fact that you've moved this as much as you have to the focus on the owner's responsibility and the owner's culpability to the situation versus the dog blame, quote unquote, that we had issues with before. I don't have a problem with the change with the under voice. I understand what you're saying,
Well, I
but
mean, if your dog bites somebody, you should be liable for whatever damage they do. And that should be more severe than walking without a leash.
And it will be. It would be. It just is trying, again, it's just trying to, because we have the issue, and trust me, I've been on the other end of the phone call and having to deal with this and the headache and the Facebook posts and all that other stuff. And people just have a little bit of control. And, again, it's never a problem, and you choose not to walk your dog under, voice control, and that's the risk you take. Sorry, JD.
I definitely, I guess I kind of am agreeing a little bit with Matt, the fact that I certainly wouldn't want that enforced strongly, as far as the non-leash. I mean, I've got a neighbor that they walk their dog and they'll come steamroll me, and a happy dog too, and we certainly I wouldn't want to take away those liberties, people that have good dogs that to force them to have a leash all the time.
Yeah.
So I guess if we're saying that,
Yeah,
Again-
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Again, it's not necessarily, so again, that good dog, they're doing a good job. If I got a not so good dog, but I'm not keeping on a leash, he's on a leash, they're gonna go.
Yeah.
I don't care how, I've not seen very many dogs that won't not go, especially the dogs coming out. So I think that's the issue, so if they can control it, I'm just, we don't have to, it just won't sound like, just to clarify it, we're not out there, taking.
right, and I mean, I understand both sides.
Yeah,
so.
I do too. That's-
And a lot of our incidents have happened with children, letting dogs out, and maybe if this helps parents say, you don't take that dog out unless it has a leash. Because kids say, oh, I'll let the dog out, but then the kid goes and plays and then the dog's running all day.
or the dog's not trained to sort of listen to the kid as much as the adult, which I've seen that happen.
That's the one. It's just more suggestion. I mean, again, you guys have voted. You're like the other stuff is we're more on board with. I mean, this is just more just again trying to simplify it because like, a lot of people move down like they have leash law or not. Okay, they do. They'll get a leash.
But I think we all agree about the horse, right? No.
Well, what's the lady?
Oh,
If
I'm just walking my horse.
if it's bridal,
Don't be
I'll call Jeff Travis, see what he thinks about that. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jamie. Yeah. We don't want to be heavy-handed. We're not, our goal's not to be heavy. We're just trying to.
Well, the ordinance on hippopotamus is pretty cutthroat. You just can't have.
See, and the thing is, I'm guilty too, because I take my dog to the fairgrounds and,
Let 'em run.
and let her run, but if I'm like you, it's like, I can say Addie here, and she's there, but you coming up across another dog, it's on. It's like, I agree. I mean,
Yeah, it's tough. I haven't seen it. I mean, my brother-in-law trains the dogs, for the whistle, hunt dogs. That's about the only dog I might trust. The other dogs around.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from,
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
from you and your dog.
but I understand what we're talking about,
Right,
because
right.
if you make you have to be on a leash, then the after fact deal is unlikely to happen. I mean, it's,
I don't know. It's tough either way. I don't know. Because there's common sense time like that, that open area. I mean, there are, I get it. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why we do a dog park or
I'm
something.
of the opinion that if an incident happens, you were not in voice control of your animal.
Sure.
I mean, just because I walk my dogs without a leash frequently. And I'll see a dog coming and I'll make the adjustment of going across or telling my dogs to sit
Yeah.
until that other dog is freaking out and runs off.
Sure.
And my dogs can handle it. My dogs
Sure.
don't attack another dog.
You're a good dog owner, though.
I'm right.
Yeah.
And I worked hard to get them that
Sure.
way. And I just think if an incident happens, that's the definition of, well, you weren't under control. So now you're a problem guy.
So yeah, I understand.
If your dog bites somebody, you're a bad owner. You're a bad.
Here's what I would suggest. So when we go to pass this, I might pull that section out and let you guys vote on it because we can't vote on it here. That way you can think about it a little bit more. If there's a consensus for the rest of it, fine, and then we'll let you think about it. Maybe vote separately on that. Is that reasonable?
That seems.
That way, because obviously there's lots of feelings with that.
Yeah.
And that makes it.
This is not a make or break a section. It's just more,
No.
okay, just simplify it, just, again.
And same thing with electronic fences. That is something that came up when I was doing some research. Talked to Doug about it. He's like, yeah, I hate them because sometimes they don't work, particularly for your large animals.
Big dog run.
I
This
say
doesn't,
my dog would run right through it.
this
Never
doesn't prohibit them.
Yeah, I mean, if I
because
see something
Yeah.
like a rabbit, a squirrel,
It just
I
says
want
they're
that.
discouraged and then that you should somehow post that. Because if I'm walking down the sidewalk and your dog is chasing at me, but he's going to stop, but I don't know if he's going to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Or my 4-year-old knows he's going to stop.
I got one of those. Come by my house, he's gonna.
Yeah. So that's just it. A lot of times they'll run through the fence, get shocked,
Then
but
run
it's after the
Yeah.
25 feet pass when they've gotten to you already. I mean, that's.
So, I mean, you can use them. It just says they're
And for a well-behaved dog.
My dog ain't gonna cross that line.
Yeah.
He won't
Oh,
cross that line.
you
You
can
better.
My dog probably wouldn't either.
I've
I
seen
gotta
dogs
turn
go
it
like
up and it's wide.
15 blocks away from there and just zzz, 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 zzz all the time, and then they'll just wander
Yeah.
back, and they don't care about the buzzing after.
Again, we're not saying you can't have, we're just saying, hey, just think about that.
and to pull them back a little bit from your, I mean, if you already have one installed, fine, leave it, but if somebody's putting a new one in, pull it back a little bit from the.
Yeah.
Don't put it right on the sidewalk.
What was the 10 foot? Was that the?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I looked at mine, it's like, probably 6 foot. 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll discuss that later.
We'll go measure it.
We'll discuss that
When
later.
we're out there protecting leashes.
Sit back and
He's only 10 pounder though.
He's got a short neck.
And then the other thing I added, because this has come up as well, got these dogs running around, they're gone now, but some dangerous, and our guys just can't catch them. So I put in there that they're authorized to use force reasonably necessary to restrain or put down the dog. Most of the time they will use to try to tranquilize. Worst case scenario, they can put it down.
You're talking about police or animal
Yes,
control.
for sure.
They weren't previously allowed to do that.
It wasn't in our code anywhere. They always call me. dog.
What about self-defense? If you're out and about, without even, like, just as a pedestrian walking by yourself and you're attacked by a dog, what are your legal rights as far as
Well,
that goes?
You have to let
Can
them
you-
shoot your arm off.
That issue has come up in town, and Mark had it went through him, because they got prosecuted. One person said it was self-defense, the other one said it wasn't. That's the risk you take. But
So
you gotta do
how did
that.
it turn out? Did they get,
Oh, I think he heard that.
Good, hopefully this will help with all of that.
so you're gonna have court fees, is basically what's gonna happen.
Well, one person said you hit the dog and that's why the dog attacked you. The other person said I hit the dog because the dog had attacked me. I mean, he should, and then what started it. And
So the other thing, we're almost done, licensing, I just moved it. Previously, if you had a dog in the city for 30 days, it needs license. I moved that back to 14. Because we have, and it is, whether it's your dog or not, if it's living in your house for 14 or more days, you've got to come register. It doesn't cost anything. There's no reason not to register it. We have, particularly with this COVID thing, we have older kids moving back with their parents. We have college students. We have sometimes people just get tough financial and they come back with their parents. They bring all their dogs. And all of a sudden, we've got a house with 5 dogs, and we don't know about it, so it just says, come register, so at least we know what's there.
The way you keep track of the dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I added that, we didn't have this in a report for some reason, kind of common sense, but if you move, you need to update the city with your address and where your dog is.
What's our dog count up to?
Yes, how many dogs we have in Beloit now?
I think we're pushing 300.
Really? I mean,
50, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
It's working. The staff's really good about, especially when they're signing for utilities. I mean, it's part of our packet now, so they can kind of catch their course. Probably 9 times out of 10, we have an issue with the dog's not registered. So we haven't we still have to do the whole get the rabies shot, all this other stuff, but eventually we're getting there. So it's been good. It's only been like that for a year now.
So what other ways do we get that to make sure they're registered? I don't know. My dog drives food.
Registered, yeah. I mean, we'll put on the utility bill once in a while, just trying to remind people, Facebook, that kind of stuff.
It used to be annually, we have a reminder out. What my plan was, once we get this completely redone, I'll do some kind of public information stuff through the paper and social media, just to kind of remind people again, hey, you do need a license. We probably should just do it once a year, like we used to anyways, just a reminder.
Do we give a tag or anything?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So my dog doesn't.
Yeah. It just helps. First of all, it helps dogs a lot of times. We can get them, we can catch them, so that way, oh, this is so-and-so's dog, we can get it back to them faster. And then also, yeah, if it is an incident, because that's just it. The dog bite incident is not fun to deal with. You got everybody upset, or somebody's hurt, the dog, whatever. So that way, Doug also knows, like, okay, well, this dog at least has the rabies shot. We get the history, we know all this stuff about it right away, and we're not having to know. But
Are a lot of dogs chipped?
I don't know.
Does
about
Doug
that.
have a breeder?
No, I don't know.
I don't know.
most dogs that you adopt nowadays are chipped
Yeah, I
because
don't
they
know if our
adopt.
Maybe a
vet-
good question for the vet.
Yeah, I don't know if our vet's a big chipper. I just don't.
I know they have the
Steady.
breeders, but
$35. Thanks.
slight side topic, but you had mentioned dog park potentially. That would be something I definitely would be supportive of for our community, especially if we are continuing to see growth, because it would give dog owners opportunities to do that. I know that's not tied directly to, but I think it's something we might want to look at moving forward. If we have space, say in a new large facility area that we picked up, I don't know.
Well, yeah, plans on, Kelsey, open up for our
Yeah.
intern.
But I'm just saying, I think that would be something positive.
Nice job.
So that's all gonna come to a huge ordinance. I'll pull out that leash law and let you put it on that as a separate ordinance. And get her done. Another part of that is we need to redo our fee schedule. There was a lot of animal fine stuff in that. I've just taken all that out. So I'll bring that back as well.
A lot of work on that ordinance.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kate.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else on that, Katie?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Norman.
Glad we got
Are
through
you,
it
are you
tonight.
sure?
Wait, the internet wasn't working out.
Darn it.
Sorry, guys.
Zoom didn't work out.
We're good tonight.
Okay, we'll move on to wards and the council change.
Okay,
Let's have Katie one too.
yeah, your last packet last time.
Yeah.
This memo was in there that I put together. Put together on the memo I did. Yeah. Made some changes. So there's a couple proposed changes. The big one, and probably most important, I would say, is the wards and considering eliminating wards. We went from 4 to 2. That was a compromise. We took that to a vote, again, to make sure that public was okay with that. And as you all know, what that turned into was, I think, a lot of confusion, particularly with this last election where we had so many write-ins. People didn't know who was in what ward. And the reality is our city is so small that you're not representing one district or one ward. Most people don't know what ward they're in. So it makes sense to just go, let's see, as a whole. At large, yeah. Yes, and just do at large, and then you just take, let's say you have 5 people on the ballot, depending on the number that you are going to be elected that year, you just take the top 2 or 3. And that's how the majority of cities do it. That should be our size.
I like that because it's not adversarial. It's not me against.
Everybody, you want to run, you run. And you
Yeah,
just
filling seats, 3 people, have that.
you go vote, choose 2.
I think the one thing, again, I'm sure it has purpose in its place, 100 years ago, when the way the communication was different back then, but I just say this last election was just a nightmare for me to try to explain to people, because it's just tough, you know what I mean? It's just, it's hard to.
Like, and the whole reason that we had it was just because there was enough people still concerned about representation. And honestly, if we're not hearing that as much anymore, then
Well, the whole town's voting for the mayor.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, but it should be the
And
same.
when-
for
And
everybody.
you know what, and just be prepared, you might still get that, but I don't think that that's common. First of all, I don't think that that's common
Most people don't know.
feeling, and they don't even know about, from the conversations I have had about it, I don't know if that's as strong as the other, right? 'Cause it's one of those decisions I think probably needs to be made, is gonna be a decision, I think, for the town.
So what I think would be best, because we did that we made an election question last time, I think we should do it the same. I don't think it doesn't have to be that way. We can change it by ordinance, but I don't think it's a good look for us to do an election question 4 years ago, and then now you guys just can change it. So I would suggest we put it on, that's done by resolution. We have to have it done by about mid-August to get it on the ballot for November. But the other issue is, while we're doing this, do we want to look at the number, for one, filing deadline and requirements? I think that was an issue last time as well. Do we want people to make them go get the 25 signatures, or do we want to allow them to pay a fee, or one or the other?
well, the funny thing is, we just added the 25 signature thing and eliminated the fee prior to this, for 2 previous elections, basically, because then the reason we did that was because we had a concern at the time about, well, we want someone to actually have some teeth in the game of having to go and actually meet their constituents.
I'm gonna ask these. No, I'm not trying to be,
Well, at least
you two were
right.
kind of railroaded into this just a little bit, so I'm asking.
I mean, I'm new, but like I talked about running and just,
And it,
just didn't do it.
Lee is one who just said, I think it's one in front.
Is there a statute that requires the 25, or you can?
No.
It can be-
25 is
See,
time.
I don't know why we ever
It's
got
not hard,
25.
it's time consuming.
In my town, see, it was just 10.
I just,
I think 10 is a reasonable. I mean, I got a sign for Tony right now, so I mean, it's not unreasonable.
the thing is, I walked around for 4 hours on one day, I got pages extra just in case.
Well, you
It was
go to-
done.
well,
I mean,
you go
it's
to
really
one-
not.
You go to one
You go
event.
But
If you go
counterpoint to that,
citywide, it's gonna be easier too.
a counterpoint to that is, it's a deterrent for a public servant position that is really, all you're getting is the warm fuzzy of, hey, I serve my community. You're not gonna be taking advantage of this office, because it's almost impossible to take advantage of this office. Like,
Paying a filing fee would be
yeah, I mean,
What if you don't have $10?
well, it was like $10. Well, yeah, you got $10. Maybe you need to concentrate. on that.
One football game, you get 10 signatures.
I just like the idea of the fact that you're actually meeting the people that you need, that you're representing, and getting your name out there, or at
I
least
think you
having
lower the
communication
amount.
with
I think you just go to like 10 or something.
I would be fine
to
with
be a
that.
whole bunch. At least you got 10 people that put you on there.
And it's like you said, it's nice to get up and visit with the people,
Yeah.
but it's not like. hey,
What I tell people is,
spend a
number
lot
one,
of time.
here's the dirty little secret with it. It's a great initial campaign step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't tell nobody knew me. I went door to door.
Well,
Hey, I want to run
yeah.
for this. I haven't signed it.
That's what I did
They knew
is,
me.
when we can sign the wards, I went down to the old Ward 1, which I had not represented previously, and said, hi, I'm previously was in 2, but now we're combined. Want you to know who I am a little bit more. And that was a good thing to be able to
And
get people out.
Definitely probably the preferred. So I just didn't know if you guys had heard, so-and-so didn't run Brock's because they didn't want to do that, or they couldn't.
I haven't had, at least me personally, I never had anybody.
I honestly think it's a deterrent for running. I think what you're saying is a great strategy for winning, but my issue is I hate seeing unopposed elections. I think it's just like, nobody cares, nobody's listening. We want people to get engaged and care about their city, right?
I haven't had anybody, I've asked a lot
A
of people.
campaign where
I've probably asked the most people so far to run. But nobody ever say anything about it. We don't even get that far.
It was never the signatures that have told, it's the people, I don't want the responsibility, or I don't want people calling me or walking up to me. That's always the reason that people don't want to run, that I've been told. It's never been, I have to go get 25 signatures.
Yeah.
Or even 10 or
I mean, I would just propose, it can be a fee, it doesn't really matter to me, but maybe just lower that threshold, that's all I would suggest. You just go to 10 or something.
I think the signature, or getting the signatures eliminates the person that just like, well, I'm gonna do it and pay the $5. You got a little more, instead of skin in the game, and you're gonna eliminate that guy that's just gonna be, well, I'll get on there for $5 and I'll get this. You know, you've gotta.
County offices are a percentage, I think, of their salary, so their fees are pretty high. So they have a big incentive to go get those signatures, otherwise they're paying $500, $600, $700.
But I also think it'll be a lot easier if we do go to a single ward or a single non-ward at large. Because then, like you're saying, you go to your church, you go to a function, you go to anything else, you can probably knock all those out even in less time. You don't necessarily even have to go door to door anymore, but.
That's pretty low signature requirement, really, because when I was on the state board, National Athletic Federation, Kansas State Board, you'd have 25 signatures, which wasn't hard to get. You go to one banquet, and you've got that. But I mean, they required 25 signatures. I mean, no way.
I think you got 25 just in case somebody's not a registered voter.
Exactly.
Yeah, county.
That was why I got like 36.
The county, I think the county offices are like 70.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Those are all based on
So that takes some work.
So we can set it.
I don't know.
So
Yeah,
that's
we wanted to put it on there because we knew it was a point. of
You know,
discussion.
I did it both ways, the $5 and then
Right.
signature away. And first thing I'm running again, here I am,
Yeah.
get me, I mean, if you got a complaint, now's your time.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they was all kind to.
I always tell people when I would do it, I was like, you don't even have to vote for it. You just have to let me get on the ballot. Some people feel like, well, I'm asking them to vote. Like, no, they just go to it right away. I mean, I'd be like, hey, January, will you sign my petition to be on the ballot? I'm not asking you to vote for me. In fact, you vote for the other guy. I don't, not a big deal. But so that's what some people see that signature and think, well, I'm supporting that. No.
Well, I think the board issue will take care of a lot of that too. I can ask anybody as long as they're a registered voter. So.
Maybe would the consensus be just to lower it a little bit, maybe 15 signatures or something, or try that?
Honestly, I favor being able to do the option of either cash or signature. Yeah, I mean,
$250 or.
yeah, I mean.
It only take
Payable in $5 installments over the next 20 months.
It's pretty good. Our next motion would be to raise our pay.
Yeah. Okay, if I gotta pay $25, I can't buy a leash. So have it one way or the other.
I can't have my horse in town now, man. Come on.
Yeah, I think that's what we do. We just
25 cigarettes, $25.
$25 or $15,
We do it right. Maybe you get people tipping $1 that's signing.
Well, I like both ways because, the one thing about it, if somebody's got to hang up, like if they would be good, but they're busy and they don't want to go out and do
You're
that,
right. Gives them that option.
we still have the opportunity to recruit those people that would be good council members.
And I think
I probably wouldn't be
It would
very
be easier
excited
to write
about
the
going out
check.
and getting orders.
It takes a lot of
It
time.
may help get an extra name on the ballot.
Sure.
It,
I understand.
it wouldn't hurt.
Going door to door will help you get elected.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
I would, yeah.
So,
I'm saying, get them on.
I like that option idea. Maybe that's what we should do.
Now, are both those questions gonna go up on the, sorry,
And then the third question, then.
Third issue, number of seats. We went from 8 to 6. Again, it was a compromise. The suggestion is 5. The majority, again, I go back to cities that are designed like ours with a city manager and a mayor. The majority is 5. The 6 is and the way we do the elections is weird. You do 2, then you do 4, and
Yeah.
this way you pick top 2, top 3,
3,
and it's very simple. And
No ties.
we don't have the issue of numbers that we're still having, even though we went from 8 to 6.
so a quorum would go to 3 then, if you had a 5 person, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just
And
a
your
simple
mayor would
majority.
not that your mayor wouldn't break ties, but wouldn't be breaking nearly as many, assuming you had all 5 people here.
That's what we.
No, no,
I don't
if you
know.
say there's
Yeah,
5,
no
you
break.
say there's one of those
No.
5,
No, 5 plus mayor.
It might even go to, and I don't know if this is a thing here, but like, we had 5, and the mayor was just actually, he had veto power. But then the super, because really there should be no tie.
Actually, he does.
Unless somebody was gone.
Yeah, he has.
Oh, wait, what am I saying?
Yeah,
No, I had something different. I'll look it up, but.
he still has veto power.
Oh, he does, okay.
Yeah, so you also.
Oh, really? So you
Oh, so the gambles
There
be
we
used a
go.
lot more often.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
so
so
it makes one, but yeah, 5.
What's it take to override the veto?
you can do it that way, but you're really taking. Minus the veto power there, if you're really taking power.
Yeah, no,
But it shouldn't have come up much because you have 5.
Yeah, if you have like only somebody's out, you'd have 4 and then there'd be.
I don't know that I've seen Tom have to break many votes since I've been.
Yeah, but that's before you.
When I first started, it was about every meeting.
Oh, my, yeah. Somebody would abstain. Or they would be
yes.
a tie and they'd wait till the next meeting, the mayor was back, so they could break the tie. That's the votes.
So I don't know what you guys have thought about that, or do you have people approach you? I just get concerned, when we have people that were wrote in, no offense.
I had to work
Were
really
wrote in
hard
with
to get,
3 or 4.
I had 5.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that
I think I had 5
Lee
too.
McMillan wasn't in the ward and technically would have won the seat in Ward 2. By 1 vote, honestly. but
What was that?
Lee actually won Ward 2, but he doesn't live in Ward 2 by
Yeah.
1 vote. He had 1 more write-in than you guys.
I think I'm bad.
honestly, I'm of the opinion, we should condense the council to a smaller size, but I like the idea of doing it through natural attrition, like when your office is, when you got on, you were on for a term. When that term's out, then it goes into effect. I don't know how hard that's gonna be.
we can map it out, I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly what we do.
it would be tricky, but it'd be doable. Yeah. And again, this would all be on the election. Say yes, go with it.
It'll be a big turnout this one.
You guys
Just that presidential.
I mean, we were able to do it when we switched from April to November with the changes and everything else. I think we could make it happen. It would simply say in effect as of the next election, the following is eliminated and the.
Quite
following is
frankly, I think
replaced.
these changes are much smaller in scope than the last, you did a government change, you went
It's a
from 8 to
manager.
6, you went from 4 wards,
Yeah.
and you really almost broke the ward model. I think, you made some pretty big business, really just fine tuning. And we ran it like this for 2 or 3 years, worked pretty good, just tune it a little bit. And the way she goes.
It was all good moves. I mean, it's really.
Yeah.
And I guess I haven't heard. I don't know if people are that passionate enough to.
Yeah. And I'll be good, I'll talk about it on the radio,
Yeah, like we did last time, we'll put some education out there.
Quality of quantity.
Well, and we're doing our part to condense the November ballot, because that's already gonna be.
Simplifying.
We're gonna simplify a little bit.
No,
Really, we just want to, we want a simple process, so the candidate and the voter know, that just makes city government work better.
I think the last time there was a lot of resistance simply because you were so set in your way of doing it for so long.
Just change.
But like you said, I think the fact that we were able to simplify it once, I think it'll be easier to simplify it again.
I mean, if we were still at 8 people, I don't know if we wouldn't have enough.
Well, you would have had write-ins of 3 people
Yeah.
potentially, and you would have had like a 7-way tie for that, that 3-way vote. I mean, it would have been crazy.
Well, people have access, you know, also, I think stability is really important, especially in small government. You got water, you got big decisions, and again, if people want to take the reins or change it, they can run a campaign and get in here and do it, but, to have to count on some write-ins, some different things, I think we were really fortunate, but I got a lot more gray hair because of that. Like, think of all
Feel better
that
now,
work.
feel a little better.
That short straw ain't so bad, is it?
Think of all that work and hundreds, if not $1 million that we spent trying to do these things. And I didn't know it was gonna be anything else over very well. So at least have a shot, you know what I mean? Like, I was kind of like, oh, well, I guess here we go. Scary. That was really scary. So Katie and I were like, we gotta talk about that. And I think, so, yeah, of course, you guys were too, so we were all on the same page. Yeah. Alrighty, we'll do some tweaking.
Yeah,
bring that back.
that probably won't come back to you till July or so, but like I said, it's just a resolution, and then I'll get it over to the county clerk.
When I was on council in Jewel, it was 5.
Yeah, like on
Most small
the
cities are,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
Concord,
5,
all of
the
them.
mayor.
Yeah.
Drainage stuff.
Yeah.
Salinas 5. A lot of the city commissions, which are a little bit different structure, but a lot of those are 5.
And I think, the comment, especially, why are you gonna keep going down to 3? I mean, 5 is probably about, that's about all you can do, really, you know what I mean? Some people, personally, think you're trying to get down to the dictatorship. We're not. Trying to right size it for the interest, but also have a good
No, you tell
diversifying
them,
group.
you better run.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Better run for
Yeah,
that.
if you don't like it, if you don't like what we're doing, then.
Yep. All right.
Are
so-
you still in charge? Do that, that special meeting we had? The emergency deal?
Emergency declaration, yeah,
Great.
as long as the
Yep.
governor was.
I've just been out there renaming the town.
Gravy.
Bravyville.
If they don't extend it on Thursday.
We're
they
talking
don't
about something,
extend it.
Yeah, yeah, mine expired on Thursday, yeah. The hard part, but just yours.
Yeah, rabies
emergency
declaration.
Like the meet afterwards, guys.
Yeah, I know, like,
Go into executive session.
I'm just letting you guys feel like you're doing something. You know, like, decisions.
About water towers.
Okay, the last piece is the citywide drainage study. So kind of want to go briefly through this. I know we're all kind of running here on fumes, but don't want to put this off too much more. We are getting the rainy season. Not that we can go fix it right now, but at least we're talking about it and you guys can educate citizens as we're talking to. So kind of set the table again for Todd and Jamie a little bit, but probably about this time last year, maybe about a month or 2 earlier, we kind of started talking about some drainage. The nice thing with Beloit is, they're like the old towns, we got little drainage issues everywhere, but we kind of have 3 pretty boxed in drainage areas or drainage issues. So that makes it a little bit easier to tackle and fix. Just by sheer luck, I got to fix and deal with a lot of drainage issues in my last town. So so I first moved here, I kind of saw that, I was like, oh boy, that's kind of a problem. So kind of been on my radar since I moved here and kind of saw the first big storm in, I think, probably 17. So then, last spring, we kind of jumped in, of course, then June hit, really had some big issues, and we're kind of like, yeah, we've already got that ball rolling. I think this took a little bit longer too, because Rob Eaton also got flooded during that time. So it took a little while for them to in Manhattan, took them a little while to get all their ducks in a row and stuff. So they learned a valuable lesson about backing data up, I think, in that whole deal. So basically, they had a guy named Will Mann, one of their engineers in Manhattan. He's been working on this. The nice thing about this, he kind of started working on the model, doing some stuff. Basically, they have a thing called Pond Pack. It's just a modeling program for drainage and drainage basins. They run this thing through, and what we try to do is we identify all the drainage structures in the 3 main drainage basins that we have running through town, find out their sizes, elevations, the flow rate, basically trying to find the pinch points. We know, part of the concern is that we have structures that are starting to fail. That was also something that kind of, I think, precipitated this, is we had a structure fail. So we're like, hey, before we know what to slap back in there, I kind of like to know, if I slap this big a box in here, I want to, flood the neighbor down here, because anytime you do that, it's just a butterfly effect that you might have, as you'll see 10, 15, 20 structures in a drainage way. Well, that's you really start jacking stuff up. It's not, of course, everybody always wants it just to be bigger. It just doesn't work that way. So We really wanted to find out, hey, we know we're pretty limited in what we can do with those structures. There's obviously some tweaking we can do, but we kind of need to find that pinch point. That's kind of what we got to try to fit the water through for the most part and try to improve. Again, major, huge flood, crazy times, you can't build a drainage way or basin big enough to fix everything. But for a lot more of the storms, and we can make a big improvement. So I'll always put that caveat out there. So he started working on that. Thankfully, the June thing hit. So we had a lot of forensic drainage study we could do, because there was little bits of grass and dirt that all of us flooding guys are used to, and like anybody's used to, but it's really fun. I just see it, you just kind of start following where it all went. It tells you where the water was, AGCO or over down by Circle Drive or whatever else. You can kind of see where it got to and where it was overtopping. So he gave us some really good live data, because basically what he's trying to do is get the model to kind of act as best it can like an actual storm event. So we get those overtoppings in the normal spots. We know what's the issue. So we've been through several iterations of that. Again, he kind of went through, here's some of the drainage structures and the peak flows and the sizes if you're interested. So lots of that kind of stuff. All sorts of variables in here trying to get it to act right. A lot of just legalese, or not legalese, engineering ease, I guess. Again, a lot of these are looked at it 2, 10, and 100-year storm events. There's also kind of like a 25-year storm event, a 50-year storm event. Probably anything much above a 25-year storm event is really hard to deal with. They just are. Now, these things that we're proposing will always help them, but unfortunately, the 25 years are happening more and more often. But again, this will help in all those events. But again, especially those 2 and 10-year events, which seem to happen really about every year, it's going to help a lot of those. Okay. Or improve a lot of those. So getting to this map here, you probably, again, it's on your pad, you kind of see the 3 main drainage basins that we've got here. We've kind of got one we call the Western Drainage Basin. So that's kind of this area. The heavy black lines are what's really delineating that. Let's see if I can zoom out here a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So you kind of see that Western Drainage Basin. That one's really kind of starting north up there by the Tech College. The little lines are kind of breaks within that basin, but they're still ending up in the same spot. Okay, so this water here is kind of flowing over here. You can see that drainage way here. We kind of fixed that on 14, right? Remember that? There's kind of another break over here, by the North Campus, and that's saying, hey, that's kind of going more this direction. But again, it's all still trying to get through all these boxes eventually, to some degree. Okay, so West is kind of coming through here. We know we've got a lot of issues on this. What's that street? Meadow Lark Lane, which again, education point, streets are drainage ways. In an emergency, they really are engineered to do that. But this one just does it all the time. It's coming in up here. I don't know if it's John Eiler or something. He's got that cul-de-sac and it just flowing down there at the most 1 or 2 inches. It's doing it. So we know we've kind of got an issue here, but it's getting down into this Western Basin. We had quite a few overtoppings, flooding. There's some natural green spaces in there, so that helps a little bit. There could be some use in there, but really what we told the engineer is saying, hey, the most bang for the buck is if we can just do big, one big structure in each of those basins. That way we don't have to maintain a whole bunch of little ones. I've been in that nightmare. I don't want that nightmare. Now again, not to say that there may not be some of those in there as we tweak it along the way. This is just kind of, we'll build it. It's probably gonna work really good most of the time. Or we say, oh, I should put a little one over here too. But the fewer, the better. Trust me on that. So W goes all the way down. The kind of what we call the Middle East, or the Eastern, we did one. Yeah, the Middle East. Yeah, we did Middle East watershed. We kind of got screwed up. We did East, and then we had that event in June. I was like, hey, throw that Far East one in there. Well, that sounds like Asia. So I was like, okay, Middle East and East, whatever. Okay, all I got for notes. The Middle East goes way north. It's a big one, but it's pretty flat up here. So it's not. It isn't until it really is getting down in this area that it really just starts crashing down. If you've driven out there by 9, it dips. You can see that Goldie getting cut through there. There's some ponds on these folks' property, and then it really cuts down through here again, and it just has a hard time. It's making 90-degree turns. Water doesn't like doing that. There's the bridge, just for the next time you're driving out here to go look at 8th Street, to see that, you'll see that huge bridge under 24. It's a big 3-box bridge. It's massive. All that water is then trying to get through this structure here that's like a 6x6 box, right? It's like, and it's turning, and on top of that, it's having to turn to go underneath the road. Then it turns again further down. I mean, all these are just no-nos and nightmares, you know. But again, that box was probably put in 1880. You know what I mean? I'm not kidding. And then that bridge was built in 1950s, and they're like, oh, it's still big, you know, and it's just a big issue. So, you know, again, kind of that issue all the way through, big water trying to get through small holes, all the way down. The red boxes are basically highlighting a overtopping and a change your shoulder. So we agree with most of these. They're lighting off just like they're supposed to. Then the final one is the far east one, or the east drainage basin. Again, that's the one that kind of goes through a lot of county, but it is some of the city limit stuff, you know, through Zimmer Addition. Thank you. You know, we did have 1 or 2 residents in there that got water in the basement for the first time ever, from what I understand. Then it kind of goes back to the county ag code, but again, you know, being good name, you know, they have flooding issues trying to fit. Again, you look at that drainage ditch, it's really wide, it's really flat. The water doesn't move really fast at all. And then the drainage boxes are really small. So I know they've done some cleaning of the ditches, but you know,
The railroad track actually was one
a
of
big damning point. Yeah, exactly. So that's just it. You've got, that's going to be your constraint. It just is. And you can clean it all you want. It's a good thing to do. And there's going to be some of that we need to do, but they don't dredge rivers when they got flooding. They build lakes. You know what I mean? So that's the issue. So that's why I really wanted to throw them in there, because I know that that's going to be more the ultimate solution with this thing. So you can again see the pinch points. And yeah, Andrew highlighted, I think the railroad tracks here. You know, even the one at Ag Lake, that structure's not big enough. You know, the one at 8 or West Main, you know, that one's small. I mean, they're all just old county storm boxes. You know, they're twin 6x6s. They're just not going to take that kind of water. Okay, sorry, that's the whole set the table. So here's kind of the idea as to, again, this is a long arc on this, right? No pun intended. So arc, flooding. Okay, whatever. I'll keep going. But it is, yeah, tough ground, really. But this is,
You're closing in on 2 hours.
I know, yeah, longest meeting we've had in a while. But sorry. So with, you know, this is kind of something that some people are gonna ask me, as I go, you guys got about that figured out? I mean, this is not something like we can just go build tomorrow, but every day, you know, if you don't make progress today, we're never gonna get it done, and we can't get them done. Some of these I think are more doable than others. So you can kind of see, I'm going to zoom back in here so you can see them better. Kind of some proposal. Again, I haven't talked to property owners, so please, you know, as you're, you know, all of a sudden, I heard they're going to take my property. No, we're not. This is best case scenario. If we can make it work and figure it out and talk to the property, you know, make a solution, these are going to work really well. So over here in the west, this is kind of an idea that basically what I asked Will to do is say, hey, so what would it look like? You know, to get these to kind of fit better in some of those, I would say, you know, mid-major and down storm events, you know, what would some of those basins look like, just so we can have an idea of what we're talking about. It gives me a concept to start selling and trying to get lined up. Now, whether it's got to be here, moved upstream, or do something different, that's fine. But these are the ideal spots as far as we can tell. Okay. So first of all, we kind of want to take this corner of this field here and really try to do a better capture point here. And this is kind of where that we did some of that concrete storm box work, if you'll remember, right there on the corner of 8th Street and Meadowlark. Yep, exactly. And there's some issues there. So really that's not going to look that crazy primarily. It might even be farmable. I couldn't tell you. It's going to be more just kind of a catch area, you know what I mean, to kind of help catch it, let it back up a little bit. Of course, we'd be talking to the farmer, working on an agreement, those types of things, but it's just allowing it to help slow down some water. That's really what we're doing. Detention, retention, giving it a chance. Water's still going to run. The same amount is still going to run through there. But instead of doing it over the course of 2 hours, it's going to try to do it over 10 hours or 12 hours.
So on an ongoing basis, is it going to be a standing pond, or is it going to be an open
You're gonna have a
ditch?
pond with a pipe down low so that
Yeah,
drains. is
I
what
would
you're
say
asking.
I'm pretty sure almost all these are dry.
They're going to be dry.
That'd be more like a waterway. It's what I
Well,
have in my mind.
they'll be called like a detention basin. So yeah, they'll hold it for a while, let it out slowly, and then there'll be a dry bottom.
Because I don't think we want to build
No,
construct
No.
right
The
next to a
only one he
residential.
had was
Yeah.
wet, was up on the very east. We'll get to it.
yeah,
There was one that, yeah, it's wet.
yes,
but-
yeah, and we'll talk about why and how. Yeah, again, yeah, they're gonna be built to be dry, you know, they'll be wet for maybe a day, you know, a day and a half or whatever, but they're gonna drain down and for the most part, all they, again, from what I'm familiar with, you end up, you can mow them. Cows can be down, you know, you can still basically use the area, you're really trying to grade it right to get it to retain water and let it out at a slower rate. Okay,
And that
so
one over west, that'd be out of city limits too, wouldn't it?
for this one here,
Yeah, that one on the west.
yeah,
side on
it
Beloit.
could be.
I don't know if that's.
That's not abnormal. I've done them before that way, and people are like, well, is that you're paying for it outside? I said, well, yeah, but it's affecting inside limits.
Yeah,
So yeah, Tom, that's it, yeah. But so this one wouldn't really be that major. This is again just to try to help that little area. Probably the more major one would be this W11. So this is kind of in that bottom area. I kind of have talked to Mr. Gentry a little bit about it. So I mean, he kind of, I mean, because they have issues there too, obviously. So just trying to use kind of that natural catchment area, if you look at it, and you know, obviously grading it correctly so it can actually be even and have some capacity, and then having an outlet structure that's trying to control that, you know, so it's staged that the fuller it gets, obviously the more it lets out, but we're, you know, it's going to be kind of what I've dictated to Stuart just based on my own experience. Engineers will engineer a certain flume on it, and it works really good on the calculator until you get to a real storm event, and it's like either it doesn't fill up or it fills up way too fast or whatever else. So we'd want to put some sort of structure in here that we can kind of play with. It sounds great. Tunable. Does that make sense? So it's tunable. You know, we can, you know, I've seen them before where they've got multiple holes. You can cover them up. You can do different, you know, so it's, you know, it might have 6 across the top, and 2 at the bottom. You know, as it gets fuller, it lets out more. And of course, all these would have an over top that, you know, you get a 10-inch rain, ain't nothing we're gonna be able to do. So yeah, exactly. That's just life. So that's kind of what that one looks like. Obviously, there's been some drainage improvements done through this area. Obviously, the box we put in, the gas line got covered up and improved, there's a flume there, or whatever you want to call that structure. And this is really, for lack of a better word, kind of some junk ground. I mean, it's kind of made for it. So right before a big structure that has some issues. So that's kind of that western side. We feel pretty good about that, but I wanted to let you guys know before I start talking to those landowners, just to see what the reactions are, so you guys, in case you have some input. The eastern one, again, this is, yeah, this one is this one would probably be wet bottom because there's already ponds there. So kind of the sell of the property owner is like, hey, we already got some okay ponds, they're, you know, nice little ponds, but we're gonna make you a really nice pond, you know. So again, it wouldn't be plump all the time, but it would have a lot of freeboard in it, but it would at least still have the same amount of water that she's had there, you know, just kind of in a different format and made to actually detain water for a period of time. So you obviously it might only be, you know, you can probably see that darker line, it might only be that big most of the time, but obviously the big storm event, it would really fill up. No chance to flood her or anything like that. It would just obviously overtop the engineer to go downstream in a big event. But again, just really taking that natural crevice that's through there and using it to kind of back up. Obviously there's another kind of crevice or piece of junk ground here that you could probably use. I mean, there's some other options further upstream, but this one just might be a good improvement. You know, it might be a win-win for both entities. You never know. I mean, it could be kind of a nice feature when it's all said and done if you do it right, because they can be kind of nice, you know, if you do them right from a landowner perspective. The Far East one, this is probably the one I'm not least interested in, but I just don't know about. I haven't really scoped it out because these other two, you know, back to the napkin engineer that I like to think I am, that's kind of what I thought. You know what I mean? With both of those, it's kind of what I had pictured in my head. This one over here, I don't know. I haven't explored it, but again, this is a lot. This piece of farm ground, right in this area especially, is kind of a collection point already. It's not prime farm ground, for lack of a better word. I mean, some of it's farmable, but it is kind of a waterway, watershed kind of issue going on there. So again, that just kind of shows you the scope of what it would take to kind of slow this down to be able to get through here. But that one would probably be one of the more challenging ones. Side note to that is, we might have a pretty good partner with that too, though. Because I've talked to some folks. So, you know what I mean? So it might have a challenge, but they're obviously pretty motivated to make some improvements in there. I think this last storm event cost upwards of almost $6 figures I heard or something to that effect. So
No comment.
yeah, no, yeah. So it wasn't good. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, the golf course. You
Not
know,
that they
so-
got deep buckets, but they'd sure be benefit.
Yeah, it
And they might
benefit.
help
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
negotiation.
Exactly. It might help with the farmer negotiation. It might help with the, all that kind of stuff. So, and again, these are eminent domain things. These are, we're trying to ruin. It's just, I want you guys to see what this idea would look like. So
That was actually my question
Yes,
for
sir.
you on these is, in these situations, is the city normally buying the land, or does the city normally simply pay for the improvement to the farmer's land?
yeah, we would probably, that's a good question. We would probably be doing private purchase in some degree, but I don't think I've turned.
Either a purchase or a drainage easement.
Yeah, I've done, drainage.
Depending on how big, just lots of factors, but we can do drainage easements.
What's 20 years from now, still be an issue upon the.
Yeah, you're gonna have these types of things. The way I prefer to have them engineered, and I'd probably be kind of a stickler on it, just because engineers don't like to do this, but you can live these stupid drainage spaces. They're great. They're also, you gotta maintain them. But one thing that really helps is from the intake, and especially that outlet, is having some sort of a, I guess what I call a French drain, some sort of a tile in the bottom of it, because it'll just cut, they'll find the cut, it'll always be a soft spot, it'll always be muddy. The better you can dry them out and get it downstream, the better. So we'll do some tricks that I'm kind of familiar with. So again, I build a lot of these types of things. Probably not some of these to this scale. How about one of these pound? Yeah, they're pretty big suckers. But I think that's probably in Stuart's opinion. And again, don't hold me to this, but from a pricing perspective, it's a piece of, it's a chunk of change, but really it's not. I mean, in the world of 50 to 75,000 per, could probably handle some of these. I mean, that's a lot of bang for the buck, in my opinion. It'd solve a lot of problems.
How much is a new bridge if you wash out?
Well, exactly. Bridge or people's properties, and really just the value you're adding to a lot of people's properties through there. So, it's basically really what it is concrete, flume work, whatever that structure is going to look like, and then just a lot of dirt work. You know what I mean? And quite frankly, we can always use dirt, but that's the problem. That part we're excited about. But doing some of that, and probably some of these you probably want to almost contract out. I mean, we got local contractors that can build these things, not even thinking. You know what I mean? They got the belly scraper and all that kind of stuff to do these. But
So the positive side of that over there on that side of town, it'd make those homes more marketable down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, these don't
it's
flood
just it's a
anymore.
livability situation. It's drainage basins aren't they're not the sexiest, the shiniest thing to build. They're not sparkly, but they just can. Improving drainage, you don't understand how great it is. It just the people. It's good for the town. It's just a good thing to do, and it's one of those that so many communities they can just kind of they just live with it, or they just that's the way it's always been, or whatever else. And I don't think for a whole lot of. I mean, it is, but I don't want to discount that, but we're not talking millions of dollars here. We're talking, a couple $100,000, and maybe you can fix a lot of problems. It's pretty exciting, I think.
Jason, up there around my house and stuff, that
Yeah.
we've had issues with.
Yeah, that one's a little bit tougher. It's not really in this study because it's kind of its own, like I said, we got kind of 3 major ones and we kind of got some little side shows going on. We think a lot of that will get fixed with that North Walnut project, that'll be all curb and gutter. That area is just so flat, so flat. The water actually doesn't run. I've been through these situations before. We got some gushers. I'd say the 3 we're looking at, those run. You know what I mean? Like they go, they're 2 hours and they're done. You know what I mean? It's like boom, boom. Yours just can't get down over the hump. You know what I mean? It just
Comes behind my house.
Yeah.
Shoots across the Jerry Cruises.
Sure. Yep. Exactly. Once it over tops,
Yeah,
right?
once over the top.
And really what you see is the water's not even hardly moving. It's just filling up, filling up, filling up. So we've done some work on it. I think it's basically a combination of storm sewer improvement, street improvement. You get the street set in there right. Probably some minor detention work. I've always talked to the school about that, even in the corner of that parking lot, man, they put a little detention pond in there. It's already acts like it.
Yeah.
That one, those last 6 spots, always a mud hole down in
Yeah.
that corner. And just put something there, that would help, again, just to contain it. And then just, some improvements of that earthwork, just to get it to flow down that hill there. And it eventually goes down into that eastern wall.
Yeah.
But you're not talking, like, I'm not too intimidated by it because you're really not talking a large volume of water. It just won't move. It just won't move. It just
And
sits.
my house personally, it does not affect.
Yeah, it was just shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had water in my
Yeah.
basement, but
Yeah, across the street, I know that.
X,
Across, yes, I know that.
have
Very aware
it
of it.
cuts across and then
So they've cut that ditch
Yes,
there. That should
exactly.
help, but again, you're talking, there's like twin 18-inch tubes, and it just can't go. So, we're not done with that. We're gonna keep, that one's solvable. I think we just somehow have to get it.
I think it's
We have to
better.
control the overtopping, and we also just have to get it to move down. We want to move east, not west. You know what I mean? That's the problem when it overtops. So,
And the problem is, like I said, it can't keep up going east
correct.
before it overtops and comes.
So, but yeah, so those are some,
I mean, I've had water in my garage, but
yeah.
my basement's, I've never had an issue with water in my
Well,
basement.
see, and there's some natural detention we can
Yeah.
take advantage of, so we can just shoot it right over there.
Yeah.
Fill your basement up.
Sure. Now, are
Indoor swimming pool, you want one of them.
are you still hoping that this is something we can do in 2020, or are you looking more towards?
Well, I would like, no, I think what the first step would be is, we gotta obviously have to kind of prioritize. Probably naturally, I feel like working west to east, but that's just me, just because I feel like this, I think I can get the western one done easy, I mean, and work my way. Probably what I'd really like to do first, and part of it might be dictated just by ease of, I might call the landlord, like, oh, that's right, do it. You know what I mean? Like, well, that might be the east one, you know what I mean? Or far east one, or whatever. So probably the first step would be just to talk to the landowners that are affected, just say, hey, just present the concept to them. What do you think? That type of thing. That's probably gonna dictate some of that. The acquisition issue, what do we do, or the easement issue. And then just, really try to come up with a plan of maybe we can knock one out a year. You know what I mean? Like that would be a workable plan. Maybe you could start on one this fall if you could really get your ducks in a row. Maybe, you know what I mean? But if not, next year you get one done. Next year, we only got 3 we got to do, because I consider that far west one to be kind of the same. Those two are kind of together.
And would this be something our city crews could do, or are you thinking you'd have to contract?
I'll put it this way, they can do it, but I think I would contract it out, because it's just like that drainage project downtown. It just puts us so far behind on everything. I mean,
Right.
they're studs. They can do that kind of stuff, but that's going to be what they do for 2 months. You know what I mean? And we don't have we don't really have the equipment either to do it. So I think I would rely on the expertise of some of those local contractors that build terraces and build detention and drainage ditches, and probably do it that way. And then, and there might be some things we do with conjunction, we might be doing something. We could, obviously some of the drainage ways we can help improve that some of these need to improve. It's really hard, for example, the eastern one that goes underneath West Main, that ditch is always full of water now. Well, it's got cut, it's all skewed up. How do you fix it? You know what I mean? How do you get it to drain out? You do it, just cuts again. I mean, it's a mess. But if we get this thing in, now you're gonna be able to protect it. You're gonna build that right. It's really that whole drainage just needs to be swaled out. It's got to get water. The narrower it is, the more it cuts. So you got to get that thing wired out. Yep, exactly. Slow it down. So anyway, if you have questions, obviously we don't have to talk about tonight, but just call me or email me or whatever. And these things will change. They're fluid. So that it'll change. This is not the final thing. But it just kind of gives me something to work off of. And so I won't call landowners tomorrow, but the next couple of days, any question about this or think about that or X, Y, Z, before I do start knocking on doors. But just in my experience and talking to Stuart, just from what I've had access to the ability to help build, I just think that this type of idea is the best solution. We could really get into a lot of money trying to get those culverts just right, and we will. This will allow us to get those just right. Trying to clean out a drainage way and this and that, but that goes in with this, but this is the solution.
When I think about slowing it down, eliminate the cuts, and eliminates that water
Yeah.
pooling up underneath the bridge
Yeah.
after rain event. and
Yeah.
the mosquito.
Yeah. And it allows us to talk about other things. I mean, this is kind of a town maturity thing. Not always the most awesome thing, but is kind of having a stormwater ordinance. You know, that's something that we can talk about. Don't have to do it, but it's just a thought, you know, and again, as you build these big commercial buildings, especially, or even a new development someday, you know what I mean? All those rooftops, most communities now are saying, hey, what's your stormwater plan? You know, because that field, wherever it used to be, used to let off water at this rate. So you're gonna put, you know, this huge building up or this also, you know, huge
Put
parking
all
lot
the
up.
concrete, it
Yeah,
ain't gonna
correct.
soak in, it's got.
So now, we, you know, what's your plan to make sure it comes off at that same rate? The best case in point here in town is, and again, love the franchise, not a knock on them, they bet the rules, they did everything exactly right, is that new cases. So massive parking lot, if you've ever been there in a storm event, even after we built that new street, remember that? I mean, that water comes out of that eastern driveway, right, on west, right, like crazy. I mean, it is, I've been there so, because I studied, you know, like watching these things, I mean, it all comes from that whole, what is that, acre or 2 or 3 concrete parking lot, it just comes out of it like crazy. And just overwhelms everything else, street, everything else. They built St. Casey's, or we had stormwater management, and they had to put in, they did it all underground though. They put in these huge tubes underground, but then lets off the water at the same rate. So we never had that flooding. You never saw that because you could see it bubbling out into the ditch, you know, about this much, but that was supposedly the same amount of water that used to come off of that piece of ground, not like sheets of it. You know what I mean? So they met the rule, but they would have, you know, if we had that in place, they would have done it because they're used to it. They would have had an engineer design it. The only problem with that is it's burdensome. It can be somewhat burdensome to, you know, raise album market that wants to put, yeah, exactly. Because then we're saying, hey, you got to get it, you know, so you got to go spend $4,000 with an engineer to come up with a stormwater plan. So that's the side to that. So it's you know, it's a double-edged knife, but it doesn't add to the problem, you know. So and same with the development. You know, they say, hey, we're gonna, it was Zimmer addition, you know, hey, you got to at least put a pond in. You know what I mean? So they do a whole plan. They say, hey, yeah, we'll put in this half-acre pond, and that will take care of the rooftops. So just something to think about. It's not something we have to decide today. It doesn't need to. We're not gonna ruin anybody's life right now, but it's just, you know, and there's some, you know, it's not
You
every.
know, like in my area, and I understand, my neighbors to the south, why they're upset, I get it. But the events that we've had that caused that were out of the ordinary. I mean, when you get 6 inches of rain in one night, that's,
yeah.
you know, I mean,
The thing I think you always got to talk to people about is it's not the amount of rain. You'll have people say all the time, we've got 4 inches before.
Yeah.
It's always velocity.
Yeah.
Velocity is king in rain events. You know, so you can get 2 inches in 5 minutes. It ain't gonna kill you.
Yeah.
You know, you can get
It
4
don't
inches
matter
in
what you
45 minutes. It's gonna be terrible.
Yeah.
You get 10 inches over the course of the day here. You'd be probably doing pretty good.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
because
It's probably
it's
exactly
slow.
just slow going through. So it's really what you always got to harp on. Unfortunately, it's been that way all over the United States the last 10 years. You got more and more frequency of fast, hard-hitting rain events. I mean, y'all remember we used to have storms when they're getting, you know, first 5 minutes, that storm just bam, go hard. Well, now it feels like it's the first 20 minutes it just does that. It just goes and goes. And you're just like, oh, that's what kills you. So that's the difference over the last 20 years. I'm not saying it's global warming, but definitely some sort of, you know, it's just climate cycles and changes have done that. Yeah. Yeah. What?
Jim Cantori over there all jacked up, talking weather.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Have an open sewer main on top of that. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not doing that. That's for sure. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. It's a tough conversation. But these are the types of things that help deal with that, you know.
so we got a plan. I mean,
I think the plan's cool.
yeah, I mean, it's,
So now we just gotta execute it
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, for sure.
and
I think.
I have executed these things, so people are saying, oh, that's just the plan.
Where I'm at now.
I don't just do
Yeah,
plans, so
yeah,
I built this thing, so we can do it.
But if you can tell people, hey, we do have a plan.
Yeah.
We, you know, and we're working on it. It's not gonna be done overnight.
Yeah, but it's executable. It really is. I think it is. We can do it.
I do have one, if we're done with
Yeah.
this water, I do have one quick question, hopefully quick.
Yeah.
Court Street completion. We'd originally talked about trying to finish Court Street
Oh,
this year with the city employees working downtown section by
Yeah.
Plum Creek and
Yeah.
everything else. with COVID, with everything else that's been happening, are we still hoping to get that done this year, or is
Yeah.
that being pushed off into 2020?
Sorry, I probably should have, I can't
I
remember.
was
who
gonna
tell.
ask that question about that.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty late.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked.
I forget who I tell or don't tell, but I kind of just made the executive decision we're not gonna do it this year, primarily because I did get reached out by businesses in that area, and we're gonna try to dress it up. We're gonna dress it up some more. It is pretty beat up. Now we got all that material, we can do that really easily, but they were just really concerned about, we
Hammered
got
it out
hammered,
already.
and we're gonna hammer them again, so.
Well, would we
If
want
I would have known for sure that this was gonna be this long, I would have opened it up in April and just gone for it, because we would have had it done in time, but yeah, it was a lot of concern, so.
Is there something we might want to wait another year?
Yeah,
You got
exactly.
hammered this year, then you go back in and hammer.
I know
next
it.
year. Give them
It's
a little
always gonna
chance
be
to
that way though, on the
Yeah.
website, but yeah, we're gonna dress it up so it looks a lot better, and drive better, but
And then the other thing would be West Main. With some of the
that's still
sewer
gonna
issues.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
so we
West
got a lot
Main
of
is
curb
still-
on that. We're gonna get that, now we got all that material, we got the product now. We got tons of product, so we're gonna be good to go on that. So if you've seen that file, we're set good. So yeah, West Main's still gonna be a go. Sidewalk project's going great.
West Main, what area? I mean, how far west or where does it start?
So basically, it's gonna start kind of right where you start going downhill, Independence roughly.
Yep.
And what we're gonna do is just blade cold mix on it, kind of like we did on Norfolk, kind of salvage that back in the day when we picked on the brick structure. The road's really pretty solid. It's just
Is
rough.
it asphalt right through there now?
No, it's brick.
Brick.
It's brick with a little bit of chip seal on it. So really, we're going for drivability. We feel from a road structure standpoint, it's pretty solid. It's just rough.
Yeah.
So we're gonna use we're just gonna we kind of put the new curve in a lot of areas. We're gonna keep doing that and then just blade in that stuff, let it get a sheen on it, then we'll chip seal it. We've had pretty good luck with that, and so we think that's gonna give it a pretty good drivability life for a while. And that's gonna go all the way up to about the railroad tracks on the other side. So that one kind of figured, again, trying to hit these high drivable ones for not a lot of money. That's going to help, give us another 10 or 15 years type of idea. And really trying to save our wad for that north Walnut area up there by the high school, because that road, it seemed kind of okay, but you can even see it. I mean, it's done that much by, if you remember even 3 years ago before we bladed that stuff on there, it was basically about done with the outside driving lanes were about gone. You know what I mean? It was all in the ditch. So and that
A lot
blading
of
is
truck traffic was going down there due to me.
Well, that's true too.
I mean,
that
shortened the
cold
line.
mix is actually it's held a lot better than I ever thought it would. I'm actually really shocked at it. So it bought us a lot of time so far, but that won't last forever. So that just kind of answered your question there. But then we put in applications for the 14s again. So South 14 is getting pretty rough, but the KDOT should help us with that. I'm kind of hoping that one gets funded. I'd love to do the North 14, but I doubt that one will for a while. But although that road is starting to fall apart in between there, so I'm just gonna let it go. Let it get really rough.
Okay, so we're seeing you again tomorrow at 5:30, right?
Yeah, well, we're gonna stay here at this point. I'm good. All right.
Well, thank you all for all your work and everything on this stuff.